Good morning to you, good morning, and a very warm welcome from myself, Tim Hutchings, here in downtown Toronto for this edition, the 2013 edition of the Toronto Waterfront Marathon, the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. I'm joined here by Michael Doyle, the editor of Canadian Running Magazine, and we're with you now for the next 4 hours, there or thereabouts, to cover this elite race, which is growing year on year and has become a major force in the world of track and field athletics and indeed road running. Good morning, everybody. We're looking forward to a very fast race here today. Conditions in downtown Toronto just about perfect. The weather forecast has been spot on. Yesterday was awful, Mike.
It was raining. It was looking like things were going to be quite terrible, actually, and it was quite windy. But the wind has calmed down. It's about 6-7 degrees out there right now, which sounds cool, but it's perfect for running. A little bit of a breeze. It's going to be a tailwind for much of the race. Might prove difficult in the last few kilometers, but that'll make for an interesting event today.
Well, of course, we had pouring rain here a couple of days ago. Cats and dogs, I think, is the best way to describe it. But that Olympic flame torch was being passed in a relay through the city centre by smiling youngsters and smiling adults as well. And, of course, the mayor of the city of Marathon, the town of Marathon, just outside Athens, of course, where it all began, a couple of thousand years ago, was here in town as well to take part in those ceremonies. It really is quite a special event for the city.
It is indeed. Actually, I was looking at those pictures there. It looked like a little bit of fun, actually.
Okay, well, we were talking just now about race director Alan Brooks and what an amazing job he's done here at this Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. Laura is down by the start line with Alan now.
Thanks, guys. Hi, I'm Laura De Silva, and you're joining us here live at the 2013 Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. The anticipation and energy are really building here at the start line as over 25,000 participants are preparing themselves both physically and mentally for the long 42.2 kilometer journey ahead of them. We've got over 150,000 spectators here to cheer on the runners, and they're cheering for another good reason. Over 180 charities will be benefiting from the money raised from today's event. This marathon shows off all of the diverse neighborhoods, the amazing athletes, and the endless spirit Toronto has to offer. So stick with us as we join these runners on their journey towards the finish line. And I'm here now with Alan Brooks, the race director. Alan, today is your big day. How are you feeling about how everything's come together?
Oh, we're so pumped here, Laura. As you said, there's a palpable energy, human energy here. So many people. We've got some really exciting racing to look forward to up front today. Canadian Olympians like Eric Gillis, Rob Watson, who was at the World Championships, Krista Duchenne, Lanny Marchand, Ludmila Korchaguina, and they'll be going up against some of the best athletes in the world. So if you're out along the lakeshore, you're out in the beaches, you'll be able to see some fantastic head-to-head competition. And then all the thousands of other runners running for their own dreams, their own achievements, the charity runners. You mentioned about 25% of the runners today, over 6,000, are running for a cause, and there's some great costumes. We have Greg Dunn. Last year he ran as Giant Pumpkin, seasonal, but this year the CN Tower, and we've got Paul Stachuk trying to set a Guinness World Record for the fastest marathon in a full lacrosse kit. So there's so much to come out and cheer for. I hope people will tune in. We want to thank everybody in the city of Toronto, the Toronto Police Services, the TTC, who are working out there very, very hard now, and our 3,000 volunteers, our Canada Running Series crew to make this happen. And this is where dreams come true on the streets of the Toronto waterfront today. Good luck to everybody.
And what are your goals for the marathon? You want it to keep continuing to grow, right?
Well, I think city marathons are important to cities. They showcase them on the world stage, and today we're running past so many landmarks, starting here on University Avenue, going past Queen's Park, the ROM, the Brunny, Honest Ed's, you name it, Fort York, and they really give the city a chance to strut our stuff, show our best to the world, and so I just hope that everybody gets around safe today, and I look forward to meeting and greeting them all at the finish line. It's a really good morning weather-wise, and so we're sort of cautiously optimistic that everyone will have a great experience and some fast times.
I hope so. Well, I'll meet you at the finish line. Back to you, Tim and Mike.
Thank you, Laura. Well, Alan there obviously very much up for it, looking pretty good shape actually for a race director who should be very, very stressed out. In fact, Michael stayed at his place overnight, and he was more relaxed than you and his partner.
He was telling everyone to calm down, and he was completely calm. I was really impressed by it, really surprised. I guess, as you said to me earlier, you know, if he's relaxed, that means that he's done all the work in advance and he's ready to go for today. And it looks like that's the case. Everything's flowing pretty smoothly right now.
Alan was saying how important marathons are for cities, to showcase the city and show the spirit of the city, the community of the city. City marathons are important. This is one of 5 labeled races, silver label races in the North American continent. But what is the state of running in Canada? And last week in Chicago, I heard there were 34 million runners in the USA, which is around 10%. It's just over 10%. What's the state, would you say? And do you have a percentage figure here in Canada?
For the most part, our trends are similar to the United States. I would maybe say that maybe the percentage is slightly lower than it is in the United States, primarily because of weather in Canada. It's tough to train through the wintertime. It's tough to get into the sport for that reason. But the numbers have been really healthy. We have seen that huge boom, that huge growth. And I think that actually what's happening right now with major marathons in places like Toronto, Ottawa, and out west in Vancouver, and then mid-sized races in Halifax and other places in southern Ontario and in the prairies. You're seeing a huge growth of the sport over the last 10 years as well.
I was talking to Peter Erickson, the performance director, I think, head coach of Canadian Athletics a couple of days ago at the Expo, and he was saying how he's trying to adopt a system here in Canada similar to UK and just have major centres of training. I think we can go back to Laura now, who's at the start line still.
I'm here with Peter Witt. He's the head of sponsorship at Scotiabank. Peter, can you tell us a bit about how this event impacts the community?
Well, this year we've got 185 charities on board. It keeps growing every year. We raised over $4.3 million last year. We're hoping to break $4 million again this year. And it's a great way for charities to get involved in a fundraising event and not have to go to all the time, effort, and money to put on their own event. We look to another successful year this year.
Well, I wish you all the best. Back to you guys.
Well, thank you, Laura. Sponsors matter, I can tell you that. I know firsthand. And it's great that Scotiabank have given their support to this race for so many years. The future of this race is certainly in good hands with Alan, with Scotiabank, and with the City of Toronto. And this is my 3rd visit to Toronto. The first time this week I've had a chance to see a little bit of the city. And it is very much a world-class city. 2.5, 3 million population. Good numbers this morning in that 5-kilometre race, which started just a little while ago. That 5K getting off at 8 o'clock local time. I make it about 8:37 here in downtown Toronto, and the elite athletes limbering up, trying to keep warm, keep loose. It's always a fine balance, I guess, Michael, between doing too much warm-up and just keeping warm. What about yourself? What sort of warm-up do you do? Do you jog for 10 minutes or stretching? Or?
It all depends on the race. With a major marathon like in Chicago last weekend, you just barely get to the start line. So your warm-up is the first few K. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's nice to be forced to slow down and to take the first few K easily and to get into your rhythm. But ideally, I'd like to do maybe a kilometer or two, do a couple of leg swings, some dynamic stretches, just so nothing feels odd when you start off in the first few K. And then when the gun goes, you just go with it and relax and fall into your stride and find a good rhythm in the first 5K.
Well, we're looking at those elite athletes now. Really strong fields of primarily Ethiopian and Kenyan athletes in both the men's and women's field. Of course, when the race gets underway in about 6 or 7 minutes' time, we'll identify those top athletes for you. They have very conveniently got their names on the front of their bibs. But just a final line about yourself while we struggle to identify a few of those elite athletes. They're still warming up out there in downtown. Your story's a pretty amazing one, Mike. I'm waiting for the book to come out. You were a packet of cigarettes a day, man. You were how many pounds heavier than you are now? 238 last week in Chicago. That's about 6 minutes per mile. I don't know what that is per kilometer, but it's a very, very high caliber time.
About 3:45, I think it was, per kilometer, which even surprises me because I remember when I got underneath the 4-minute kilometer pace, and that freaked me out. I was really nervous even running that because you think that you can't do these sorts of things when you're in a race. But if you do the training properly, you taper properly, so you store up all of that energy and let all of those niggling pains that you accumulate over the course of a training season, you let those heal. Then on race day, it all just clicks and it comes together. And you've done the training, and usually you can sort it out when you're on the course.
Now, yours has been some journey, Mike. I mean, just for people who might be sitting at home watching this with a beer can in one hand and a cigarette in the other, what was your seminal moment? What made you change from being a beer and fags guy to being a 2:38 marathon runner? I mean, you're just sub-elite.
Oh, it's sub-elite is what one of my friends likes to point out to me.
Tell us about that little psychological click over.
I think my story is actually really common when you think of it. I've talked to a lot of people, being the editor of a magazine now, that have reached out to me that tell me that they have a very similar story where, you think you're invincible when you're in your 20s. You get carried away. Maybe you drink a little bit too much. Maybe you eat a little bit too much. You pick up a nasty habit like smoking. Then you get to 25, 26, and you realize, I'm not invincible anymore. My metabolism is slowing down. I'm starting to feel like a bit of a wreck every morning when I wake up. And you just have to make some tough choices. I remember the first few runs that I had. I did a very strange thing when I first started running. I just went out, and because I ran a little bit in high school, I did the same thing I used to do when I was in high school. I went out and I just run 10K hard every day, 5-6 times a week. I would go out and I'd run in Montreal on the river, on the canal, and I'd run 10 kilometers at night as hard as I could every day, like little time trials, 40-minute 10Ks every day, which in retrospect wasn't the wisest way of doing things. But eventually, when I first started out and did it, I think I ran 10, 15 minutes, and then I was on my hands and knees, and I couldn't breathe. It was embarrassing, quite frankly. And then, if you decide one way or another, you go where you decide, am I going to continue doing this, or am I going to give up on myself? And I just decided I was going to continue doing it. I think that's the story of thousands of people that are out there today. They just decide that they're going to continue with this, and then next thing you know, you're on the line, you're going to run 42.2 kilometers on a Sunday morning in Toronto.
Well, they are indeed going to do that here in Toronto in just about 5 minutes' time. They're due off at 1:45, and there are some real characters out there. There's one of them in the blue vest just to left of picture.
Ed Whitlock, 82 years old. He's set over a dozen world records in his age group. He's the oldest man to ever crack 3 hours in a marathon. That he did when he was in his early 70s. Now at 82, he's looking to go after his age group world record once again. I believe he said if he feels up for it, he's going to try to get into the 320s today. Ed said he had a little bit of a cold the last couple of weeks, that he's been having a tough time shedding. But he's always a great runner. I think he might be the most famous runner in Canada when it all comes down to it. He's a huge inspiration for hundreds of thousands, millions of people around the world.
Well, the elite athletes, I'm surprised so many of them actually are stripped down to their vests. It must be warming up out there. It's maybe just cold in our cabin here. It's a bit of a fridge, I think. But those elite athletes really, really hungry to get underway now. They've been pacing around the hotel for the last couple of days. Most of them flying in from Addis Ababa, of course, the Ethiopians, and then the Kenyans from Nairobi on Wednesday. They've had 2 or 3 nights in which to get over the time difference and ease their way towards this start line this morning for this 2013 edition of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon, which is now just 3 or 4 minutes away. The defending champion in the men's race, Sali Waga of Ethiopia, the 29-year-old, he is running. Has a best of 2 hours, 8 minutes and 19 seconds. Last year, it was a tough day for racing. He finished in just outside 2:10, but he did win. There are 3 men here quicker than Waga, though indeed the fastest, Teresa Chimza, is a 2:05 man, 2 hours, 5 minutes. That was in Dubai last year. And Henry Sugut is there as well, very much on top of his game at the moment, a man who won the Vienna Marathon for the 3rd time last year. And he's run a 2:06, 2:06.58, Henry Sugut. So we're expecting very quick racing up front, and a halfway time of around 63 minutes, 63 and a half minutes for the men.
They should take them out in about that, and I think that the conditions do call for that. I know they've been talking about it all week, that the Pacers would take them out in that hour 03 pace, and I think that that's a smart plan for today.
And the women likewise. I think they're shooting at about 2:23 tempo.
Yeah, 2:23. I mean, it's the Toronto Waterfront Marathon record is a tough one. But I think that we've got a nice pack of women. Every year there's a couple of surprises, and this year Alan Brooks has brought in a really nice group of women. I'd say there's 6 or 7 women that are going to go out pretty hard.
Well, we saw the shot of the arch there and the balloon arch, which is blowing a little bit. So there is a bit of breeze in downtown Toronto. Alan Brooks there in the foreground, getting ready for these elite athletes as they are going to be brought forward to the start line. And
that was Philomena Cheech there, who is the top contender from Kenya.
Yes, Bayo as well, very much amongst the favourites, the Ethiopian 25-year-old, 2:24 to win Hamburg last year. All those athletes just being introduced to the crowd that are gathering near that start line in downtown. And it's an interesting one that is generally pretty flat the first few miles, Michael, but there is, as you said, a slight rise over that first 2 or 3 kilometres.
Yeah, you have to be careful as you're running up University. You're going to pass the University of Toronto area to the left, and it is a little bit of an uphill climb.
Well, we can hear the chimes of the big clock at City Hall outside our cabin here by the start line. The athletes will be able to hear that too. The elite men now being introduced to the crowd. Waga, Chimza, Sugut, Buram Dane of Morocco is in there as well, a 2:07 run-up. And Wakeo of Ethiopia too. He's a 2:08 performer is Wakeo. I can see the Canadian elite there as well. Rob Watson to the left of picture in a white vest, getting ready. Very, very nervous moments. And I mean, I always think that, people say, oh, if you're nervous, you're in trouble. But I always think that if you've got the nerves, you've got the adrenaline, Michael, you channel that adrenaline and you use it, you exploit it to your own good. And that comes with experience.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not nervous, you don't care. So, as long as they settle in here in the first couple of kilometers, they should be okay. I think nerves can be quite overpowering in a marathon where you want to be pretty calm once that gun goes off. But in advance, it's good to get that adrenaline going a little bit.
Well, that balloon arch is a really good indication of just how much wind there is in Toronto this morning. Canada's biggest city, the biggest day of running in Canada every year, about to get underway in serious fashion with some 5,000 athletes lined up behind the elite. Their 42 kilometres of racing lie ahead of them, 26.2 miles. It's a long way, and sometimes my heart goes out to those athletes who take 4, 5, 6 hours to do it. That's in its own way is tougher than being out there for 2 hours 10 or 2 hours 30. And away they go. We're underway for this 2013 edition of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. And I'm sure we'll see the pacemakers ease to the front very quickly. Good crowds at the start there, and they will be stretched out around the route, this quick route here in Toronto. The pacemakers, of course, will ease straight to the front. And so important that they lay down that tempo that people want to get the best time. The race record requires around 3:02 per kilometre for the elite. That'll bring them home in just under 2:08. And the Canadian record for the top Canadian guys, Eric Gillis, Rob Watson, they need around 3:05 per kilometre.
That's right. Yeah, 3:05. That's awfully fast when you think about it. The vast majority of people, even in this race, even some of the fittest people, can't keep up with these guys for more than 1 kilometre. I don't think 3:05. I don't think I can keep up with them for more than maybe 2 kilometres tops.
Well, the elite women need to go out at about 3:24. 3 minutes 24 seconds per kilometre to hit 2:23. That is the target. They're looking for 71:30 at halfway, the elite women, and they look to be running in a group in these early stages. Of course, the men will ease away very quickly from the women. Should point out that there's an English team here, and there's John Pepper from England, 25-year-old from Brighton, down in the south of England, in the red and white strip. Pepper looking to break 2:20 here for the first time, and indeed get the UK's or England's Commonwealth Games qualifying time of 2 hours 17 minutes and 30 seconds. And of course the Canadian qualifying time for the Commonwealth Games has been released in the last few days.
It's a little bit tougher. Peter Erickson was at the press conference on Friday, and for whatever reasons, Athletics Canada sets a little bit of a higher standard for the Canadian athletes. 2:15 for the men, 2:35 for the women. It is a little bit easier than the Olympic standard. We go with the A standard, which is 2:11:29 and 2:29, which are both very, very tough numbers to hit, and the reason why we've had a tough time sending Canadians to the Olympics and the marathon over the last number of years.
Well, of course, Eric Gillis and Reid Coulsat both hit that target last year for the Games in 2011 for the qualifying for the 2012 Olympic Games. Our cameras just roared forward towards the lead group of men. As you can see, plenty of vests, yellow vest in evidence, which with these shots makes it a little hard to identify the athletes, but I'm sure they'll settle down and get that pace right in the early stages. Almost 3 minutes on the clock, and as mentioned, we're looking for around 3 minutes and 2 seconds per kilometre, and it's crucial that these guys get that tempo right. 3:05, 3:07 is quite a lot too slow, and if they're much quicker than 3:02, then it really does take its toll later in the race. So it's a very, very important job that these athletes have got. And thinking back to the big races over the last 3 weeks, you know, in Berlin, the pacemakers did a fantastic job there for that world record of Wilson Kipsang, the 2 hours, 3 minutes and 23 seconds. And again in Chicago last week, the pacemakers did a supreme job to take the elite men through to 25K.
And then after that, Emmanuel Mutai and Dennis Kimito pushed the pace even harder. And some were saying that Kimito's run last weekend was more impressive than the world record run. And I think it's so important that these guys have some competition in the second half with each other to push each other to a faster pace. You're not going to see the Canadian soil record go down or the course record here unless there's at least two guys in this field that are going to contend with each other in the last 10K.
Well, I do know that the Japanese elite athlete in there, Takashi Horiguchi, he's 34 now, but he's a 2:09 performer, and that was last year in Lake Biwa. Horiguchi is planning to run at around 2:10 tempo, so he hopefully will be running with Eric Gillis as well, and a few other guys too. Just looking at these elite athletes now, Budum Dani over on the far side in the yellow, in 4th place at the moment. He's a man who loves to front run, as Budum Dani. He's always smiling. Had a long chat with him yesterday, the Moroccan. He was 2nd here in 2006, so he knows most of this course. He knows the city, speaks perfect English, and he looks like he's ready for this. He's had a tough time of it. He said he's had quite a few injury problems. He's had to go to Casablanca for treatment, which he has to pay for himself. Had been struggling with an Achilles injury through a lot of last year, but he says he's in very fine fettle at the moment.
Well, Budum Dani is probably the most experienced in the entire field. He's run a few of the majors. He's done very well. He's run New York, where he placed 4th twice. He's been in London. He placed twice. He placed 2nd in Boston a few years ago. I believe that was 2008. And he's got some really great experience.
Well, the elite women moving along well, and actually the fact that they're running up a slight upslope now, very gentle upslope, it's almost indiscernible, suggests to me that this is good quality running. And just talking through these early kilometres, Michael, they've been out on the course now for nearly 5.5 minutes, so the left-hand turn onto Bloor Street, which is absolutely flat, is at 2K, so they're only a minute or so away from that.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard left turn, and then it flattens out. This is actually as you'll see there, it's a slight incline up, and then they're going to hang a left any time now, and that's when it flattens out. And they run through this really lovely district of Toronto called Yorkville, where there's quite a bit of shopping, and George Clooney stays there during the Toronto International Film Festival, and you see quite a few celebrities at that time in September.
Well, we're just looking there at Sarah Kiptu of Kenya, the 24-year-old. She won the Duluth Marathon in June this year in 2:26. That was her personal best. Indeed, that Duluth Marathon came 4 weeks after she won Cleveland in 2:33. That is a really extraordinary achievement. Most athletes run 2 marathons a year, pretty much 6 months apart. They'll take a 2 to 4 weeks recovery after a marathon and then build up nice and steadily for 4 or 5 months to the next challenge. To run 2 with only a month apart, and for them to be a 2:33 and then a 2:26 is quite remarkable by Sarah Kiptoo. There she is.
She seems to be going out in front there. She's put a little bit of a gap on the rest of the pack. I guess the rest of the women's pack are hanging back, getting comfortable. But it seems that that Sarah's running her own race right now. She's deciding to do things her way. She had a great race in Duluth. Canadians will be familiar with that race, Grandma's Marathon. She set the course record by quite a bit, 30 or 40 seconds, I believe. And it was her big breakthrough race. So maybe she might get a further breakthrough here today. Who knows?
I think she's just negotiated that left-hand turn onto Bloor, and with 7 minutes on the clock, she's passed through 2 kilometres. Here's that lead pack of the men's race. It's what, 12, 14 strong. The pacemakers pumping along at the front, looking strong, and all these guys will be delighted with these conditions. You know, there was so much worry about the wind and the rain, yesterday it poured here in Toronto pretty much all day. I went out for a bike ride on Friday evening, and it was a cool evening. It was getting chilly. I think I went for a jog on Wednesday, and the conditions were very nice indeed. But it has been up and down over the last few days, so this is so lucky.
Yes, conditions in Toronto are similar to that of Chicago, where things start to get cold in October, but we don't see snow usually until December, and it's intermittent at best anyway. So today has been great. I mean, the sun's out today, which might bother some of the runners in the later stages of the race, but right now it's probably welcome, you know, to warm up the bones a little bit. And we're just running here along Bloor Street. That's the ROM right there, the Royal Ontario Museum, a well-known institution here in Toronto. We're going through the middle of the pack here. Oh, there's the guy in the banana suit, David Hiddleston. Actually, I know David. David trains with our group. He did a 2:48 last week in Chicago. So he's a pretty fast runner. He's looking to break the world record in a banana suit.
That was half a banana suit. He's been peeled or half peeled.
I don't know. I wouldn't want to run in a banana suit.
Yeah, but not for the... that's a banana T-shirt almost. I think that's cheating myself. Anyway, nearly 9 minutes on the clock. The elite men here must be approaching 3K. And the pacemakers across the front here, Moy Ben, Terrer and Mbote, wearing numbers 50, 51 and 52. And that pack of what? Looks like about 10 athletes right behind them. Not being bothered by any wind by the looks of things at the moment.
We're going through the Korean district of Toronto right now, in the west part of Bloor, before they're going to hang a hard left down Bathurst, and that's when the race could pick up a little bit. We could see slightly faster pace.
Kind of a strange tactic from Sarah Kiptoo here to go out this hard on her own, with just the one pacemaker, but on her own as regards the other elite athletes. That looks like the group of elite women about 30 metres back. It's hard to tell with the foreshortening effect of the camera here, but she looks lovely and relaxed, doesn't she? She's well proportioned, she's tall, long legs. She's actually pretty well muscled for a Kenyan female. So many of them are very, very slight, very long and lithe. And meanwhile, the race just getting underway for many of these athletes. Of course, they're all wearing their own little timing chip, so as they cross the start mats, their time is their own individual start time.
I think we just saw the Cookie Monster there, Sesame Street character.
That's not just you getting hungry, is it?
It might be.
But they are motoring now. They're moving really well here in Toronto. And that group looks, what, about, with the 3 pacemakers, 12 or 14 strong. There's quite a gap behind. No information as yet about Eric Gillis and what sort of tempo he might be on. The first really significant split we'll get, of course, and we'll try to bring to you, is the 5-kilometre split. We'll be expecting that lead group of men to be going through in around 15 minutes, 15:05 at 5K. That would put them right on 2:08 tempo. And, of course, what is very common nowadays for both the men and women at elite level is that they run negative splits. That means they run the second half of the race slightly quicker than the first half. The theory being that if you go out slightly conservatively and get to halfway in a healthy time but not overstretched, then you really can dig deep, grit your teeth, and charge through that second half and the last few kilometres.
And I think this is where it will benefit someone like Daressa Chimsa, who is comfortable with a sub 206 pace. And if they do get out in about 103 for the half, he's the man to beat at that point if he gets to that point comfortably. One of the only tricks here, you didn't see it here, but before, when they're going down Bathurst, there they are, the streetcar tracks. They have posed a problem in the past with some runners who aren't used to running on the streetcar tracks. There is a little bit of a rivet in there, and you can get your foot caught in there. You have to be careful when you're crossing them. They took down a Russian runner a few years ago. I believe she broke her foot, actually. So it's something you really do have to worry about. I'm sure they went through it in the technical meeting beforehand. See, they're staying away from them now. And also, they do create a little bit of a camber as well, so you have to be a bit careful with that.
I'm an old-fashioned Brit. We call them trams back in the UK. But yeah, you can see those rails down the middle of the road there to right of picture. And you're dead right. If you lose concentration, then you could be in trouble with those. But early stages, there shouldn't be concentration problems. This is where the athletes have just taken their left turn onto Bloor. The elite athletes, though, have taken their second major left turn down onto Bathurst. And this is where they're actually running dead straight down towards the lake for, what, about 2.5 kilometres on a gradual downward incline.
Yeah, and this will speed the race up quite a bit. If they weren't at their paces before, this will definitely get them there now. I was just checking the splits, and the first few kilometers for the men were right on about a 3:05. So we're looking pretty good right now. It's a little bit slow, a little bit cautious, but I'm sure they're picking it up now, closer to that 3-minute kilometer pace.
I mean, one explanation for that might be the fact that it is a chilly morning. Generally it's good conditions for marathon running, but it's, what, 7 degrees out there, something like that? I mean, you could see your breath, couldn't you, when we were outside the cabin a little while ago?
The sun's going to slowly start warming things up. They're probably getting closer to 10 degrees now, but I'm really surprised to see that all the Kenyans and Ethiopians are sporting the singlets with no gloves, no hats. Last year when Warga won the race and it got quite warm towards the end, he was wearing a stocking hat and a t-shirt with a singlet over top of it. So he was really bothered by the cold.
Well, Terrer is very much to the fore in that elite men's pack. One of the 3 pacemakers. He's due to try to get them to 30 kilometres. In fact, Terrer, along with Mbote, he wears 51. And of course, the race does start in waves, Michael. Such are the numbers.
It's grown to that size, and the wave is the smarter way to go for a race that's going to grow to say 20-25,000 people. That way, you don't have any huge problems. Several years ago, they did have an issue where it was tough to get across the start line for the middle and center and back of the packers, and there were some complaints about that, and the race organizers did address that, and now it works well for everybody, and it gives the recreational runner an opportunity to stand at the start line and go when the gun goes, instead of the long shuffle you get in Chicago, for example. Even though they do 2 waves there with 40,000 people, you're going to get the long shuffle towards the start line.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing waves in Berlin for a number of years, for example. Of course, Berlin's one of the really big races, 40,000 starters, but it does enable every group of athletes to experience that real buzz with the music booming and the build-up and the nerves. But here we are back to that elite women's pack, and of course, Sarah Kiptu has eased back on the throttle, and either that or they've accelerated and caught her up, but she's now very much back in the pack there. 15 minutes on the clock. They should be approaching 5K.
And they're going through that sub 207 pace right there. Yeah, I just saw the K marker there. This is the first fueling station. Interesting to see what the guys do here. Some guys opt for just a little bit of water if their mouth's dry. Other guys, like the pacer in the front here, have grabbed their fuel and are working the fuel strategy right from the beginning. They have a fuel station with their own special fuel that they've selected themselves, something they use in training, something they know is going to work with their stomach, and they get the tables every 5 kilometers.
Well, the ladies are approaching that point as well. 3:24 per kilometre is their target. They should be getting to 5K in around 17 minutes. So they're about a minute and a half away from it at the moment. Meskerem there to the right of picture in the pink vest. Meskerem Assefa of Ethiopia is an athlete who has run in the last 2 Olympic Games for Ethiopia at 1,500 metres. She went out in the heats at both championships. Indeed, she ran at the World Championships in 2009, 2011 for Ethiopia as a 1,500 metre runner, the metric mile. and again she went out in the heat. So I think she's reckoned somebody's trying to tell her something, and she's moved up to the marathon with spectacular effect. She made a debut in Houston in January, around 2:25, to come in third place in Houston. And she's one of those who might threaten the more experienced marathon runners today.
And you know, she has her own type of experience. She has run in North America, around the world. She's done some Diamond League races over the years with the track experience, and she's got that fast finishing kick. She's done an 800 in around 2:01, and she's done a 1500 in, I believe, 4:02. So she's got that speed, and you don't want to mess with her in the last, I'd say, 500 meters. I don't think any of these girls want to get into a track race with her in the last 500 meters. So if I'm one of the more of a grinder, I would definitely want to be taking out the pace quicker there.
Just saw some of those girls struggling to get their bottles. I think that drink station came upon them seemingly without warning. One or two of them had to leap sideways across the road. That's a real shame, because it does upset your rhythm. Fortunately, with 15, 17 minutes on the clock, it shouldn't really affect their day. But if that happens in the latter part of the race, then it really can disturb your rhythm and be quite stressful. Well, we've seen that second wave head off from the start line down here near City Hall. A more sedate pace, of course, for many hundreds of the athletes in that second wave, just keen to get their race done rather than at any particular time target. We mustn't forget either that the half marathon runners are starting there as well with the marathon runners. I think 12,000 in the half marathon.
I mean, it's no secret that the half marathon is what's growing and powering the sport right now. And the majority of half marathoners now are women as well. We've got about a 60-40 split in North America between women and men participants in the half marathon. And you know, really, this is the event that fuels the race, that allows for the marathon to continue to grow. But the marathon, of course, is, you know, the big distance, and it's intimidating for a lot of people. So the half marathon is this great way to cut your teeth.
The only really good indication we're getting of what the wind is doing in downtown Toronto is that balloon arch over the start line. It's still looking pretty still, so I don't think the wind's picked up yet, and we just keep our fingers crossed it stays, at least for these elite athletes, that way for the next couple of hours. This is the elite women's pack. Sarah Kiptoo to the right of picture there. It looks like there's 7 or 8 women in there. Hard to identify them at the moment, but they are moving well. And the pacemakers, I'm sure, are hitting their marks. We haven't got a 5K split yet for those elite ladies. There's Eric Gillis. Now, first time we've seen the Canadian #1 that's taking place in this race. His training partner, Reed Coulsat, doing a half marathon next week, recovering from a broken shoulder bone when he fell off his bike back in the summer. Now, interesting to see that Gillis there to the right of picture in the white has got the arm warmers on.
Yeah, I guess he's finding it a little bit chilly. Both he and Rob Watson are in this nice little group here, along with the Japanese runner and a half marathoner, I believe, Sami Jabril, who trains in Toronto. He's also sporting the New Balance white and red singlet, Canada singlet. I'm pleasantly surprised to see that Rob Watson of London, Ontario, is up in there with Gillis. He's a 2:13 guy, and this is his 4th marathon this year. He's the Canadian champion. He's been sitting on that 2:13 PB for over a year now. He really wants to get into that 2:11, 2:10 range. He wants to be one of the top dogs, and this could be the opportunity for him. I chatted with him a little bit before the race, actually, while he was warming up, and he said, you know, I feel good today. I think this might be my day today. I feel like I might be able to do something special.
Good. This is the second group of elite athletes. They're moving at 2:10 tempo. The pacemakers are 55 is Kogo. He's in the green vest, and Correa 56 are right there. But there is Eric Gillis, just tucked in at the back of the group. He has got the gloves on. Proud to be wearing that Maple Leaf vest, along with Rob Watson, who sports those long black socks, which have become so popular in recent years. But Eric Gillis, of course, a very, very genial guy, and somebody we caught up with earlier on in the week.
And here comes Eric Gillis, getting up to 11:29, crosses the line there. He's made it by the looks of things by about a second. It couldn't have been tighter.
Hi, I'm Eric Gillis, professional marathoner and Canadian Olympian. So this will be my 3rd time racing in the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. And I've had two really great experiences. 2011, I made the Olympic standard by 1 second in Toronto.
All right, number 4, guys. Here's a good one to stay on it. It's just work, Reed. Nick's working hard.
3, 2, 1.
Right off the line, push it hard, guys. Let's go.
I'm proud to say I'm Canadian, so representing my country at the Olympics, and it's something that I'll always have and cherish. Toronto's a good course. It's a flat, fast course. They bring in amazing fields, so it makes me hungry to get on the line and see how many people I can beat. Canadian record of 2:10.09 has been around for a long time. You know, I get the feeling from Canadians, they want it to be broken, so I would like to be the person to do it. And if it's not me, it's going to be someone soon. Racing Toronto, to see those people and the enthusiasm in a race that I'm doing as a full-time job, I just, you know, I would not want to be out there doing that by myself. So it's great to be on the line with that many people.
Well, clearly very up for the task is Eric Gillis there. And let's hope he does it. And fascinating to see them both in those vests, Michael, which have real significance. He and Rob Watson, those white vests with the red hoops across the chest and, of course, the maple leaf.
Yeah, New Balance decided that they were going to do a commemorative singlet that emulated Jerome Drayton's singlet from 1975 when he set the Canadian record of 2:10.09. I think it's a pretty sharp-looking singlet. I think it's a really cool homage to Drayton.
I wonder if they'll be sporting something like that come the Commonwealth Games. It is nice. It reminds me of the old England vests, actually, that I ran in a few years back. Take away the maple leaf, and that's a vest I've worn a few times.
Well, you know, that's funny that you say that, because apparently Drayton, where he got his vest from, was he got it from a British runner, and he removed the roses, right? What was on the
rose,
yeah. And put him and sewed a maple leaf himself into the singlet. Back in the day, it was very DIY. So
hey. Don't knock it. I'm that old. I can remember my mum sewing all sorts of badges onto vests, including international vests. I think my first ever international for Great Britain, I was given a vest and given an embroidered badge and told to go away and do the sewing myself. Yeah. Can you imagine that now?
Things are a little bit different today. I mean, you look at the kit that they've got. That's, you know, head to toe in the New Balance gear, and it's of the highest quality. Great shoes. It's got, you know, the sunglasses. I think Drayton was probably one of the first guys to run in sunglasses. He had those aviator shades that he famously ran in, made him look like a cop. I think it's really smart here what Gillis is doing. He's tucked in behind the group there, letting them do the work.
Well, Kenneth Mungara has the course record here. Mungara not running today, having won this race 4 times, no less. But Eric Gillis is here, the 33-year-old Canadian who is from Antigonish in Nova Scotia, where he went to college. And Gillis, a man who's very proud of his roots, he said, make sure you mention that town and they'll all love you back there in Nova Scotia, so I'll be popping by for a beer sometime, folks. I mean, you know, you kept right on top of Eric's year. He's had a couple of problems where he's had to pull out of these marathons, but he said that he's really pleased with the way this last 10, 14 weeks have gone. Do you have a good feeling about his run today?
Yeah, he was so disappointed earlier on this year. He was supposed to run Boston first, which is quite exciting for an elite. A lot of people don't know that elites sort of chase times and they chase standards, and this would have been one of the first opportunities for him to go to a major marathon. He really wanted to run Boston. He was injured, and then he planned on trying to do Ottawa, which is at the end of May, give himself a little bit more time to get over that injury. That didn't work out. He was still struggling with injuries, multiple injuries. And but apparently over the course of the summer, he stitched in a really good series of training runs, of workouts. He told me that he did a couple in the 40s. He did an over distance one, a 45K at one point, and that he's ready to go and that he's ready to run really fast.
Well, here's the elite women, 25 minutes on the clock. They're looking for that. The next important split for them will be a 10K split, and course record, well, 2:23 around there. They should be going through 10K in around 33:50, something like that. So they're a couple of kilometers or more away from that just yet. But it's always so helpful when you're in a pack like this, you know, from training as well as racing. If you're tucked into a group, so much of the psychological burden and the physical burden to some degree is taken away.
Absolutely. the smarter runners in this group will sit in the back or tuck themselves right in the middle if they're comfortable with that. Some of the track runners will be more comfortable with being tucked in the middle of the group because they're used to that. But it's nice to sit in the back, let someone else do the work. I mean, that's why the pacers are there. The pacers are there to do that work for you. Really, you should turn your brain off in the certainly the first half.
Well, Flomina Ceic is very much amongst the favourites. The Kenyan 31-year-old who won Vienna in April this year in 2:24. The Kenyan is in that lead group at the moment. She's had a marvellous 2013 season, has Ceic, winning the Ostia half marathon down near Rome in 67 minutes, 67:39. Back in March, that was a PR, and then 6 weeks later, won the Vienna Marathon. She didn't just win it, she won it by more than 7 minutes, did Ceic, with that 2:24 clocking. That implies there's a lot more good running in her legs yet.
Yeah, we spoke to her at the press conference on Friday, and she indicated that she actually spent some time in Japan and speaks Japanese fluently, which is becoming increasingly common with the Kenyan runners in the last 5-10 years. There's a great running culture in Japan. It's one of the biggest spectator sports in Japan. It's kind of like hockey here. I mean, they broadcast it live nationally. They have all sorts of different road races and track events. And so many Kenyans are drawn there. They run for corporate teams, and Ceic has quite a bit of experience in Japan.
Salome Getnet, of course, is in there as well, the Ethiopian 27-year-old. She was second in Rome back in March this year in 2:25. That's her personal best. Some confusion over her identity, by the way, on various websites, but the Ethiopian is a very experienced marathon runner. She's run 9 marathons. By my reckoning, just checking the stats on her, and she made a spectacular improvement in Rome back in March. Her previous best was 2:31. Imagine that jump. She went from 2 hours 31 to 2 hours 25 in Rome this year when she took second place in the Italian capital. So very much an athlete on the up, as well as Getnet, must not be discounted.
Yeah, she's bounced around quite a bit over the years, and she appeared in a couple of Canadian races in the last few years as well, and ran substandard times, but she was cutting her teeth, I guess, at that point. And she looks like she's made a huge jump in her training in the last year.
I think a lot of the way these athletes improve when they do make big jumps is about their attitude. They get into a good training group where the whole philosophy and approach to the workload that marathon runners have to take on is different. I was reading a really interesting interview with Mo Farah a few weeks back, where he was saying that when he joined Alberto Salazar in the USA and left the UK, which is a big jump, had to take his wife, his family with him, he said that he realized just how much more work he had to do, and he said that was also improved, that awareness was improved by going to Kenya and seeing how the Kenyans lived, and he realized that he was doing so much surplus stuff, so much surplus activity that was taken away from his recovery every day, and he adopted pretty much an East African lifestyle of dedication towards the cause, which is eating, running and sleeping, and not much else.
These runners live a very Spartan lifestyle, at least the better ones do, where you don't cloud your life with too much outside stresses. Very different than your recreational runner that has to go to a job 9 to 5. This is their job.
Well, they're now approaching the 10-kilometre split. We're looking here for, if they're on race record schedule, around 30 minutes 20. They should be within about 30 seconds of the 10K split. Pretty exposed here, Mike, on this part of the course. Thank goodness there is not much wind about.
Yeah, they're running now in the lakeshore area, and they're heading out, so there will be a little bit of a headwind, and we will get to see it. Take a look at the banners there. They're not moving too badly. There's a little bit of wind catching them. Beautiful sunlight. It's a gorgeous morning out there. Some really great pictures here. But this is what the Pacers are there for. They're there to break the wind. They're there to make it easier on the leaders for the first half.
Well, I got them at 10K there in about 29:58, and that is flying. They really are shifting here through these early miles in Toronto. And if we just go to our charts and look at what 10K in that sort of time means, well, they're on schedule here for something around 2:07 flat with a 10K in 29:58. That is my unofficial clocking, by the way, but we got a little clock ticking away here in the booth, and we saw them cross those mats, so we're within a second or two of it, I guess.
I think this is right where they need to be. They definitely don't want it to have gone out in a slower pace. There's a huge payday for setting the course record. of 35,000 extra dollars, which, you know, as you were telling me the other night, goes a really long way in Kenya.
Yeah, fascinating conversations with some of these elite athletes. So the Kenyans in Chicago last weekend, in Toronto over the last few days. And, you know, you can take a Canadian dollar, a US dollar, very similar currency. You can take that and back to Kenya and multiply it by about 20 in terms of its buying power. And a lot of these athletes who go back with $10, $20, $30,000, the really big names, of course, are going back with six figures. They're going back with $200,000, $300,000. They're buying up slabs of land in Eldoret up in the Rift Valley, a town which is has just exploded over the last 15 or 20 years, buying land and then developing it. And it's not rocket science. You buy land, put property on it, you put apartments or small houses on it and rent it out, and that's your pension sorted.
And some of these guys even get into building hotels and building training centers, like Florence Kiplagat has done. Lorna Kiplagat, sorry.
But there are a few Kiplagats out there, I agree.
I don't know. I know Lorna Kiplagat has done with the training center in Eten in Kenya, which is quite a nice place from what I've heard. Reed Coulsett actually stayed there quite a bit over the last couple of years. He's gone to Kenya a number of times now, and he did a little presentation at the expo over the weekend, and had photos and videos from training at altitude in Eten.
Here's that lead women's group, 32 minutes on the clock for them. They need to be passing 10K if they're on course record schedule in around 33:50. So they should be about a minute away from it, and they were looking for a 2:23 tempo, so very, very close to that. But good to see so many there. I count 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 women, I think, in this lead pack at least.
And you can see Sarah Kiptu, who had initially taken out pretty hard in the first few kilometers, off to the side there. If I were her, I would just tuck into the back and let others do the work. I can't tell if it's her stride or if she's a little bit uncomfortable with the pace, but she should settle in now and let others do the work.
Well, they're approaching the 10K marker, these lead ladies. And as I mentioned, course record schedule. And that women's course record, just a reminder, by Sharon Cherop 3 years ago, 2:22:43. So we're looking for them to go through here at 10K in around 33:50. It's going to be very, very close to that. And the pacemakers, so far in both men's and women's races, absolutely spot on with their tempo.
And you know what's amazing is actually that course record, there's two people that have tied for it. Sharon Cherop and Corinne Yell, the following year, ran the exact same time and tied the record. So there's been some pretty incredible races on the women's side over the last few years here in Toronto. And we could see another one today. There's, like we're seeing here, a good group here. It has, you know, obviously it's very early in the race, so they haven't, you know, yet to shake out. But it seems like there's a good competitive group, and I think there are a few contenders, and there are always quite a few surprises looming at 20, 25, 30K.
Well, I got them there at 34:02, the elite women at 10K. That puts them pretty much spot on schedule for 2:23.5. They need to accelerate a little bit, but they've got 32 kilometers in which to do it. A tiny bit, a minute fraction, really not significant outside of course record schedule. It is a tough ask. I think that 2:22 is really classy running. It was one of the fastest times in the world back in 2010 when it was achieved. And I think also on a cold morning like this, maybe those first 3-4 kilometers you are easing into your running, and perhaps you do clip off a few kilometers which are a bit slower. Back to this big men's pack, and they are moving. Now, I don't know if this section is slightly downward, Michael, or if it's just the impression one's given, but they're really clipping along well. 52 there. Pacemaker nearest the camera is Mbote. He's tasked with going all the way to 30K if he can, almost three-quarter distance, and that really sets it up well for the men. And can you just explain the reason for pacemakers for those people watching back at home who might not understand why you need pacemakers?
Well, for two reasons. One, the obvious one is for breaking the wind. It's kind of like with race car drivers who, the race cars, they try to tuck into the slipstream of the other car, and it actually physically will pull you along. And that does happen to a certain, albeit much smaller degree, for runners. And the second reason is purely psychological, which is you just, as an elite runner with a pacemaker or two in front of you, you dial into the back of their head, you shut things off, and you let them do the work, and you just relax. And these guys are running purely aerobically. They're not anaerobic, so they're not like a sprinter who is, you know, pushing really hard and needs to use their arms and their legs heavily and is going all out for only a few seconds. They're aerobic. They're supposed to be comfortable, and what better way to be comfortable than to just not think about it too much and let someone else do the work for you?
Yeah, chance would be a fine thing. I don't think I've had a pacemaker in my life, but they're doing a good job out there at the moment, and I think you need it if you've got 42 kilometres to cover. Now, is this the second women's group with the elite Canadians?
It is. We've got Lanny Marchand and Krista Duchesne. Krista's there on the right, tucked in behind her pacemaker with the pink arm sleeves and the green top. And Lanny's got the white hat on and the ponytail. She told me that for whatever reason, she always has to wear a ponytail when she races. I guess, well, she's got the long hair. And then we've got Ludmila Korchagina behind her. Ludmila is a fast Masters runner. She is in her early 40s. She is the only other woman to get under 2:30 besides Sylvia Ruger, the record holder, who I believe we'll have with us later on to chat about this a little bit, particularly if these ladies are able to keep pace and go after that sub 2:30.
Well, they're looking for that Canadian record, are the ladies here, and that means they've got to go through 10K in about 35:10, so they're obviously a couple of minutes past that now. We didn't get that split for them, but they look to be moving well. The pacemaker's there at the front of the group. There's at least, as you say, 3 of the main Canadian elite protagonists on the female side, so one can assume they're moving at the right tempo. Certainly Lanny, when I spoke to her over the last couple of days, was very, very confident. She won the national championships over 10 kilometres, beating Duchesne in Toronto back on the 21st September. And that 2:31, when she was 5th in Rotterdam in April last year, she feels is due for quite serious revision. I mean, of course, she's run 2:31.51. It's only a few clicks inside 2:32, and she's trying to improve it 3.5 minutes. It is a big ask.
It's a huge ask, but at the same time, I think both of these ladies are... if they're not ready, they're getting very close to being ready. I heard talk of from the lead pacer there, the tattooed fellow Réjean Chasson, who is a 2:19 marathoner himself and a great guy. He was saying that they were talking about going out at 2:27 pace even. So they both think that they're really fit, and they have come a long way in the last couple of years. That 2:31, 2:32 they both ran in Rotterdam was the beginning for them, really. And this year, Krista actually has put up some really great times earlier in the year, and then Lanny snuck in and ran that hard 10K at the Canadian Championships at the Zoo Run in Toronto a month ago.
Well, they're both fascinating athletes, of course. Lanny Marchand is an attorney at law, and is based in Chattanooga, just moved to Chattanooga recently, in recent months, I think. And Krista Duchesne has got 3 kids, aged 7, 5, and 2, putting in, 100 miles a week when you've got 3 kids of that age. She was saying how much $1,000 per year, that's $28,000 bonus should she win, be the first Canadian across the line and break that Canadian record. How big a help it would be. And we had a chance to catch up with both the ladies earlier on.
I'm Krista Duchesne. I'm a mom of 3 and marathoner, and I live in Brantford.
My name's Lanny Marchand. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I live in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I'm a marathon runner as well. It's nerve-wracking going to a big marathon to try and run a big time and also meet somebody who you're supposed to keep pace with and room with and hope that you can be friends with. And for us, it worked out, and we get along really well, and we communicate back and forth when we're not at races together and touch base and see how training's going. And
well, the funny thing is, we only met for the first time a year ago, and I don't know how many races we've done since then, but it was in Rotterdam. We were both taking a shot at the Olympic standard, and it was a pretty easy connection from the beginning. Like I said, Lanny has a figure skating background. I played hockey. We're from large families, so that was a great connection for us. And we've motivated each other as being rivals and being teammates, so it's been a great partnership, I guess you could say.
It's awesome having somebody beside you who, Krista put it perfectly, they're similar to a pacer, but at the end of the day, like, she's working just as hard as I am to run at that pace, and we're keeping each other honest. And I don't ever want to beat anybody, and especially Krista, if she's having an off day. Like, If she beats me, she wants to beat me when I'm at my best, and when I beat her, I want to beat her when she's at her best.
It's like having another pacer right beside you that wants it as bad as you. So it just only makes you want to run faster. And like Lanny said, you know, when there's days that it's not going so well, you're thinking of that other person who's out there pounding the road, so you get out there and do the same thing.
I think it'll be pretty cool if it happens this weekend, or if it happens next year at Toronto. But if it happens in Canada, in Toronto, when the original record was set in the US in Houston, like, it just shows how we used to have to go elsewhere for this caliber of a race, and now we have it in our own backyard. I say that and I live in the US, but like, my family's here, my family's from Ontario, my family will be here watching the race, and to have it as a local Canadian race and have this caliber that Canadian women marathoners can compete in it and go after a record time that Sylvia had to go elsewhere to look forward to get that caliber of competition. Alan's developed it and brought it right to us in our backyard, so it's pretty awesome.
Well, two delightful ladies there from the Canadian elite, just chatting away just about this Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon, which is now 42 minutes old for the 5,000 athletes out there. And this is the second elite pack for the ladies, with both Lanny Marchand and Christy Duchesne in there. And Ludmila Korchagina is in there too. Now, she's a fascinating athlete, Michael. 42 years old, Korchagina. She changed from Russian nationality to Canadian back in December 2004, and she is so experienced. I counted at least 27 marathons on her card, Korchagina. She's been around a long time, but she's still running incredibly well. That PR of hers, that personal best, was of 2:29 was in 2006, so a few years ago now. But apparently she's been talking about still running 2:27, 2:28 today, she hopes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's arrogance or confidence on her part, but she did run a 2:32 in the spring at Ottawa and became the Canadian marathon champion this year as a Masters runner, which is quite impressive on its own. She's a quality runner, and she is very experienced. I mean, everyone who runs in Southern Ontario knows their names and has seen her at the races over the years.
Well, back to the elite men, and 43 minutes on the clock. They're not so far away now from 15 kilometres. Indeed, if they're on race schedule, they should be passing in around 45 minutes, 45:20, something like that, to be hitting 2:07, 2:07:30. But glorious sunshine bathing the road, bathing the athletes here in Toronto this morning. And the pacemakers doing such a good job. And clearly the wind is not an issue, because the athletes aren't tucked in right close behind the pacemakers. I think if the wind was an issue at this stage, as they're still heading west, of course, then they would be feeling, they'd be closer together. Those three pacemakers would be bunched closer together, and the athletes would be tucked in behind them more. In fact, have they made the turn now? And
I believe
yeah,
they have
made that turn, haven't they? They're heading east now.
They're heading with the wind to their back right now, which, you know, this is going to be smooth sailing for them for quite a ways. This is a part of the race where these guys just have to relax and let the pacemakers roll it out for them, keep them on target. The only concern that I would have at this point as a runner in that pack is that my pacemakers are doing the work for me. But they've got a nice group there. All the guys in the yellow singlets are your pacemakers. They are all sporting the bib number in the 50s. And they are creating a nice little wall here, although they don't really need the wall because they got the wind to their back right now.
Well, it is important, as you say, stay relaxed here. But this is where, with the wind behind them, maybe they can just pick up a little bit of credit, so to speak, against the clock. There's some of those drink cups. 416,000 cups in the course today, apparently, for the athletes taking part in the various races. Some 25,000 races, of course, in this day of running in Toronto. And these guys are approaching 15K, where they'll have their personal bottles laid out. And very, very important psychologically as well as physically that you get your personal bottles as an elite athlete. They hand them in the night before. They're refrigerated overnight and then placed out along the route the following day. And they're told which table their bottles will be on. This looks just like a water drinks station to me as the elite approach. But 15K coming up. Canadian women also out there and coming through this water station. There they are, Lanny Marchand and Krista Duchesne and Ludmila Korchagina, all going through together. And apparently they agreed last night at the technical meeting, the athletes' technical meeting, which I attended, that they had an informal chat, and they decided there and then, the night before the race, that they would run together, those three, try to work together, which is kind of smart, I think.
I think so. I mean, I think they all have the same goal in mind. They all want to at least get under 2:30. I think that would be a big thing for running in this country, for women's running in this country. We need to see these women take the next step at this point, and I think it's smart that they all run together. And I think it's a good idea that they bring Ludmila into that as well, because Ludmila's got that experience, and I think she's still got a sub 2:30 up her sleeve.
Well, this is the elite men's pack. I think actually while we were covering those ladies just now, we missed them going through 15 kilometres, 47 minutes on the clock. They should have passed through by now. This is actually the ladies, but I haven't seen that elite men's group go through the 15k marker. This is the elite ladies group, Group 1. Abeo is very much there in the yellow, the tall figure at the front of the group. Looks like she's really hungry for it too, does Abeo. 2:24 athlete, the Hamburg Marathon winner in April last year, and indeed fourth in Ottawa in 2:27 in May this year. Abeo looks comfortable. There is Chimsa in the men's race, very much one of the favourites. Chimsa, Derese Chimsa, the 26-year-old Ethiopian, who is a tall, quite intimidating figure, frankly. 8th in Dubai last year in 2:05.42. Hasn't run a marathon this year, but he had a fabulous 2012. Listen to this. He ran 3 marathons, Chimsa, there in yellow. 8th in Dubai in 2:05. He won Prague in 2:06, and then was 2nd in Frankfurt in 2:06. And I'm trying to think of the last time I know of an elite athlete who ran 3 races of that sort of caliber in one calendar year. 2:05 and then a couple of 2:06s. Quite astonishing. And perhaps understandably, this is his first marathon of 2013. He's taken a long recovery.
A deserved recovery. But and this race is unfolding just the way that Chimsa will want it to unfold. I'm just looking at the splits here from 15K. They're on sub 2:07 pace, and that's just right. That's right in his wheelhouse, so he'll be comfortable with that.
Did you get a split for 15K?
I did. Yeah, it was 44:58.
44:58 at 15K. So
that's right at mid 2:06, 2:06.35 pace.
Wow. If anything, they've accelerated then, because I think they were on 2:07, 2:07.20 pace about 30 minutes ago. So with, what, nearly 50 minutes on the clock, the men here in Toronto building nicely. They haven't even reached, well, they're close to third distance. Yeah, I guess they're through third distance, and they're on tempo for around 2:06.30. That would be a course record by a minute and a half.
Yeah, that would be great. It would be fantastic.
Alan Brooks, the race director, indeed blessed this morning with this glorious weather, as are the 25,000 runners enjoying the perfect conditions in Toronto this morning. And this is building nicely too, this women's race. Like, you get a good feeling when there's a pack of women like this moving along so smoothly, 7 or 8 of them. Tiny figure there to the right of picture is Asefa. Tall figure, rather dominant, isn't she? Abeo, she towers over Asefa. Abeo nearest the camera there in yellow. And Mekash there as well, wearing the pink strip. Centre of picture, Dingnesh Mekash. She's a 2:25 athlete. She was 4th in Paris earlier on this year. And listen to this, when she took 4th place in Paris back in April, she knocked over 3.5 minutes from her personal best. It was a massive jump in performance for Dingnesh Mekash. So she's very much in the mix at the moment.
And we're coming up on 15K here. We're going to get a 15K split soon enough, and it looks like they're going pretty nicely as they're using that tailwind to their advantage.
Lakeshore Boulevard it is for this group of ladies. They made the turn, what, a couple of kilometres ago to the western extremity of this course, which pretty much runs east-west along the north shore of Lake Ontario.
West to east.
West. East-west.
East-west.
Yes.
Depends on which way you're going. Yeah.
There is Chimsa. Powerfully built, isn't he, for a marathon runner? Shaven-headed.
He's got that quick arm action, which will come in handy as he gets tired when he gets into the 30-plus portion of this race. Almost looks like he wants to jump up there and do some of the pace work himself.
Doesn't he? Yeah. 51 there. That is Terre, due to go to 30k. And the other good thing about these great conditions is that it should actually assist the pacemakers in doing their job very thoroughly. There we can see that western half of the course, and they're now heading back along the lakeshore, running from left to right.
I do a lot of running along this area, and it's a tricky spot because you get some crosswinds and the wind will shift and go in different directions. There's a trail that many runners in southern Ontario are familiar with called the Martin Goodman Trail that runs right along next to where they're running on the Lakeshore Boulevard. And I always joke that Martin Goodman must not have liked runners because it seems like you catch a headwind in both directions when you're running down there. But it seems like they've got the wind to their back out there today. So I think they're safe on this run back.
And those elite men are about 17 kilometres right now, Michael. They've still got I'm just looking at my map here on the wall. They've still got maybe 10 kilometres, 12 kilometres of running, generally in an eastern direction. With that wind behind them, they can really pick up some good time here. And it could mean that by three-quarter distance, we're looking at something around 2:06.
There's a couple of points to keep an eye out for, a couple of points where you might shake a couple of people. First, right around the 20 to 21K mark, there's a little bit of a turn where they go into a quiet area. And then between 20 and 28K, you've got a long stretch out in the eastern lower portion of the city, the quieter part of the race. It's the less pretty part of the race, not like these guys are here for the scenery anyway, but that's the part of the race where things get a little bit quiet. And at that stage, I think the race you'll get your first look at who the real contenders are for this race. I think the other part to keep an eye out for is what race director Alan Brooks has been calling the Gordian knot, which is something they had to add for this year. It was because of all of the construction in the area, they've had to go and do this weird there's 8 turns in a very small amount of time in the late 30s in this race, and I think that's where this race, where the winner will emerge, coming out of that Gordian knot in about 15 kilometers time.
Well, one thing that doesn't help us commentators, or indeed you folks back at home, I guess, is the vest colours of these athletes. I count 7 or 8 athletes in this group of about 12 who are in yellow vests. Now, I do a lot of commentating on track and field in the summer months and the Diamond League, which is the creme de la creme of the track circuit. And it's one of the big gripes that we commentators have is athletes wearing the same coloured vests. And look at this, there's yellow everywhere. Fortunately, we can see the numbers on some of these athletes, the majority of them, we recognise some of them, but boy, it doesn't help anyone when there's a few colours under the rainbow, but yellow is clearly the colour of the day.
Well, it's good for when it's sunny out because it's about as close as you're going to get to white, so it's going to keep things nice and cool. It looks like some of the pacers are finding it a little bit warm out there at this point with the sun, because we saw one pacer throw some water over his head, which is unusual, especially for this early in the race to be that heated up. I guess there has been a change in weather out there, and they're feeling that heat a little bit more.
Well, there's a lot of atmosphere out on the course. There are groups of spectators dotted around the place. One lady who's out there for us is Melissa Schenk, not with a weather report this time, just to give us an idea of what it's like. Melissa.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. Wow, what a day out here for the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. You can see the energy is just alive. Now we're at the 7.5 mark. We have runners actually on both sides of us. The elite just passed by, so they're flying through. And as you can see, people are just alive. And unbelievable energy coming from both the runners and from the cheering stations all around me. And behind me, I'm sure you can hear the drums, you can hear the bells, you can hear the whistles, you can hear the cheers. We've got a sea of red t-shirts out here. Everyone out here in the red t-shirts is at the Toronto neighborhood centers. So many charities today, and so many people running for charity.
charities. I believe there's over 180 charities in total, or 182, somewhere in around there, but there is a lot. And a lot of people out here, a sea of colors, and just, I cannot believe the energy and what it takes to run through. We've got Batman and Robin. I mean, you never know who you're going to see running through the streets here today for such a great cause. Unbelievable. Way to go! If you're watching this at home, one of the things I do recommend you do, check out Twitter. If you're online and you're watching us live stream, go onto Twitter. So many people are taking pictures, and you can hashtag, of course, STWM, standing for Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. It's unbelievable to describe. You know what? The energy, the feeling, the sounds, just more elite have just run past me on the other side here. To be in the middle of it all, to be on both the left and the right, and just unbelievable costumes. Look at this guy running through right here. I mean, you just never know what indeed you're gonna get. And at the 7.5 mark, the energy of all of the runners still, they are going strong, they are happy, they are smiling, and they are super at what they are doing. Unbelievable, you gotta hand it to them. All of the cheers out today too, just the drummers, unbelievable. I'm looking forward to continuing on through the cheering stations, because again, like you said, you never know who you're gonna meet. Woo! As you see, there you go, way to go guys. So I'm gonna throw it for now back to you in the studio, Tim and Mike.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, I think if there's that much energy out there, you'd put the mic down and get running yourself probably, but Batman and Robin out there, I thought they were superpowered. They're not so close to the front right now, are they?
I guess not. But they're working it as a team, though, at least.
Working as a team. One of the great things, of course, about events that have an out and back course is that where the runners are going out along one side of the road, make a U-turn and come back along the other side, is that the runners create their own crowd, in effect. So the atmosphere is absolutely infectious. And Melissa there mentioned several times the amount of energy that's just sort of emanating from the runners. Well, that's really common in these events, and you have to be out there to experience it, really. If you're watching on TV, maybe just get out and support the runners on the course as they come by for a little while. If you're enjoying it on TV, you just stay there with that very healthy cup of tea.
Yeah, yeah. It's looking like it's a nice day out there now, though. So I think it's worth stepping out your front doorstep if you live in the East End and the beaches area, which the elites will be approaching in the next half an hour or so. And they definitely would appreciate it. I know I love when there's cheers out there on the course. This is a particularly special course because of, like Melissa said, that out and back on the lakeshore. It's really great to get all that positive energy from thousands of people, literally thousands of people on the other side of the course.
There's the elite pack of ladies moving past with hordes of runners on the other side of the road. They're heading eastwards. The masses, for the most part, still heading west out towards that U-turn at about 12.5 kilometres out on the Queensway. Dense pack, of course, moving at certain points. Medical station there to left of picture. Let's hope that's not needed by anybody today. Less chance of it being needed in such glorious conditions. 25,000 runners out there. There's plenty of drink and gels out there for them. There's 186 official charities, and that's another incentive for people to keep going and not use those medical stations. Here come the Canadian ladies, that second group of elite females, and very much to the fore, Lanny Marchand there.
Lanny's looking good. I don't see... Oh, no, that's actually Natasha Wodak. She is the fourth Canadian woman in this race. She's looking to go about a 2:35 today. It's her first marathon. She was an excellent track runner. She had a huge breakthrough earlier this year, ran a very fast 8K in January, and kind of exploded onto the scene, and has been giving the other top Canadian women quite a challenge on a regular basis.
I didn't see Krista there just then, did you?
No, that was Natasha Wodak. So she's probably a few minutes back from them. She's pacing a little bit more conservatively today. So that was a different different
I thought I saw Lenny. Okay. I'll take you. You know them better than me.
I think. Well, we'll go back in a few minutes. Now I'm nervous.
Well, these are the men with just over the hour on the clock. 60 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock as they pass through downtown, the lakeshore. On their right, of course, some sizable boats out there. But approaching halfway, and we're hoping they hit halfway here in around 63 minutes. That would be spectacular. It would produce a course record by almost 2 minutes if they were able to maintain it. But the really good thing is that, you know, you've still got that group, what, 10 or 12 strong, shifting along. Yeah,
this is an ideal scenario right now. As long as we get something in the 103.5 or lower, we're in for an exciting and very fast race. Last year, right around this stage is when they started to grind to a little bit of a slow halt, and we had ourselves a tactical race in the second half, and that's how a guy like Warga got his nose into it and was able to win with the 210.
Great news is that these guys will. Some of them are going to have a wonderful day here today in Toronto. They're going to go home. They're going to tell folks back home about what great conditions Toronto can produce, and they're going to bring back more of their friends. Interesting to see Buramdane there towards the back of the group. Doesn't look like he's struggling to me, but he's quite a busy runner because he's not a tall character. Don't know if we can get him in shot. He's just to the right. There he is in the white shoes to the right of picture is Buramdane. As you said, probably the most experienced of this group. He was 4th in the World Championships back in 2011, but I had a long chat with him yesterday, and without putting too fine a point on it, he was none too didn't speak too well about the Moroccan Federation and the way that their athletes are treated these days. He said it's a period of flux, let's say, at the Moroccan Federation, where athletes like him, he didn't know, for example, before those World Championships in 2011, with 3 weeks to go, whether he was going to be selected for those World Championships or not. As a marathon runner, that would be bad if you're a middle distance runner. For a marathon runner to not know several months ahead that you've been selected is absolutely ridiculous. But Buramdane saying that the great runners, distance runners of Morocco's recent past, the last 20 years or so, don't really contribute anything to the sport either. They've all got their own priorities, their own interests in life, and he feels that things are in a bad way at the moment in Moroccan athletics. And that's kind of reflected if you look at the world rankings, because there isn't the same strength that we're used to over this last 10 or 20 years at 10K and at half marathon and marathon.
And now that is Yoshi Osaka, who is a Japanese runner. He's 64 years old, and he's going for an age group world record. He said he was inspired by Ed Whitlock, and that's why he came to Canada. He wanted to meet Ed Whitlock. We did a chat the other day. He, Ed Whitlock, myself, and Brett Larner from Japan Running News at blogspot.com, which Japan running fans will know about. Elite running fans will know about that site. It's a great site. And Osaka was so excited to meet Ed Whitlock, and he ran. Osaka is trying to run a 2:42 today at age 64, which is unbelievable.
It's a little bit frightening, actually. It also humbles you, doesn't it, when you're a lot younger than that, and that sort of time is long, long gone.
Yeah.
Humbling stuff.
Well, you know, he also does a really strange form of training. He told me that he runs twice a day, every single day of his life. He does the exact same workout. He does 2 15K runs a day, and he does 1 kilometer downhill intervals and twice a day, every day. So he's doing 30 kilometers a day, 7 days a week, with downhill interval workouts twice a week, every day. So he's doing 14 interval workouts a week, which is really strange.
It is bizarre. It's bizarre. But the Japanese are known for their very, very hard training and their stoic approach, philosophical approach to the demands of the training for distance running. Good to see this elite group of men, by the way, moving so well, getting their drinks without any problems. There's a few gaps appearing, but I think that's because they've just negotiated yet another of those drink stations. We've got, 64.5 minutes on the clock. I'm hoping they've passed through halfway, but we haven't seen that split yet.
No, I'll see if I can find it here on Twitter. We've got a guy in the truck from Canadian Running Magazine. Scott Leach is in the truck. He's been live tweeting the event from inside the lead vehicle, and we've also got a guy Dan Way out on the course who's biking along with the lead women. He's going back and forth between the East African elites and dropping back to the Canadian elites as well to get splits. So we'll have all that on Twitter. Follow Canadian Running on Twitter, and you'll be able to get live tweets about the splits and some photos from the course as well.
Well, a quick shot of the masses there. Most of them still heading out west as we join these elites. Just past halfway, 65 minutes, almost 65.5 minutes on the clock now. And Chimsa looking very, very strong there, as indeed is our banana man.
David Hiddleston. He's a Scot living in Canada, living in the west end of Toronto. He's trying to get under, I think it's 1:32 for the half marathon. He's trying to break the world record in a fruit outfit. He chose the banana. I don't know why he didn't choose the pear or the tomato.
A thistle? No, it's not a fruit, but he's Scottish. Whatever.
I think a
Whatever
thistle would
takes
be
your
tough
fancy.
to run in.
Goodness me. Good luck to him, though. And good luck to these guys. This is the elite women's pack with their pacemakers moving well.
They're going under the Gardiner Expressway right now. A little bit of reprieve from that sharp sunlight that's hitting them all morning.
And that's Benjo, I think. In the green is the pacemaker for this elite women's field, who are heading out for 2:30, 2:23.20, 2:23 pace was the planned target for them. So those elite women are themselves now, hopefully, about 5, maybe 6 minutes away from the halfway spot. We'll try and bring you that split as quickly as we can indeed, with confirmation of the men's split. But the news that we had at 15K at least was that the men were on about 2 hours, 6 minutes, 30 tempo here in Toronto.
Nice shot of the lakeshore there with the windmill. And that windmill, actually, when you're running along there, and if there's a sharp light, sharp sunlight, that windmill casts quite the shadow. It's quite an imposing shadow with the blades flipping around. It's kind of hypnotic.
And here we see the elite women, and there's just a little hint of single file creeping in here. Is that Mekash at the front there, in the pink, behind the two pacemakers? That's, I suspect, might be the 20-kilometer arch for the ladies.
And if that is, they're moving really nicely. They're moving under 2:23 pace, if that was the 20 kids play. So that was indeed the 20K split. That's a great time. They have picked it up. They've moved quite quick in the last 10 kilometers and made up a little bit of ground, and now they're running very fast.
My guess is that 20K they're around 67.25 there, the ladies, and if we dig down, that puts them on 2:22.5 tempo, something like that, Michael.
And that's excellent. And they have to take advantage of this portion of the course. You know, you see there are a few twists and turns along here. They're going past Bathurst, and then they're going to take a jog a little bit right here, and they're going to get into the lower part of the lakeshore area, the quieter part of the race, where the men have gone through and are now on the Commissioner's Drive, the long, lonely stretch of Commissioner's Drive here. It's a tough spot to run. It's a quiet spot. There's no residential out here. This is where some of the film studios in Toronto are tucked. We've got a bit of a film industry going in Toronto, and this is where Pinewood, you might know of Pinewood Studios. They're originally a London studio. They've got Pinewood North America here, so they shoot some big Hollywood films out here in this quieter portion of the eastern part of Toronto.
So if you just joined us, you're watching this 2013 edition of the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. The elite men in this 42 kilometres, 26-mile race are past halfway now. They are on schedule very much for a new course record here in Toronto. That would mean something down around 2 hours, 7 minutes, 2 hours, 6 minutes maybe. And they are moving well, as indeed are the elite ladies in their particular group. What, some 7 minutes back, maybe a little bit more. But this is the elite women coming towards halfway. And there's still a big group there, which is good to see. We may have not only a couple of really quick times here today, but some fabulous racing to the wire in Toronto. Such a flat course. These pictures are great. It gives you a good idea of how dead flat this course is for the vast majority of the time. Just what these athletes need. It enables you to get into a nice steady rhythm. You haven't got to negotiate and drive up any hills. You haven't got to lean back and struggle with the pounding of the downhills. You know, some courses are really, really tough, like Boston, for example. People complain about the Boston course knocking their legs about like nobody's business, and it takes a long time to recover.
When I ran it in 2011, I couldn't walk for a week after finishing that race. It was the most pain I've ever felt in my life after running. It's unbelievable the difference between doing uphill and downhill races versus doing a flat race like here in Toronto, or Chicago last week is a great example of a nice flat course. Berlin also, obviously the world record producing course, pancake flat. A lot of the runners are looking for that. They like to, like you said, they like to get into that groove and relax, let the pacers do the work, and they only really have to grind it out in the last 7-8K with these flat courses.
That's not to take anything away from Toronto. Of course, the world's oldest marathon. It gets massive crowds and huge tradition there on the east coast of the United States for that April race every year. And of course, we do cast our minds back to the awful events of Boston this year with that terrorist bombing, and wish all the athletes who were injured and shocked by those events well in their endeavours to run through this year. Certainly there was a moment of silence in Chicago last week in respect of the Boston incident, and we very much doff our cap in the same manner here in Toronto. Well, this is the elite women, and they are moving quickly, approaching halfway, waiting for those mats to come into vision. But if they're on anything around 71, 72 minutes, then they're certainly going to be threatening that course record. There it is, the halfway point for the women, 71.48 unofficially. My eyes sometimes lie at my age, but that's near as anything, 71.48. And Michael, that is absolutely perfect.
That's right around 2:23.5 pace. They're just above the record. But that's a good place to be if you're one of these elite runners. They typically like to go for that even or slight negative split, and with that large group, you could see a slight negative split be produced in the last 10K of the race.
Well, they're still there. Chayach is there. Abeo, Mekash, Meskarem Asefa, Sarah Kiptu. I'd like to check that she's still there. The tall figure in yellow, who was the early leader from Kenya. And of course, it'd be great to get an update of Lanny Marchand and Christy Duchesne, the leading Canadians. We'll bring you news of them as quickly as we can. But it does look like there's very, very little wind out there to compromise proceedings for these elite. Pacemaker's doing a good job checking around behind them. Here's that elite's men's pack. Budam Dane is still there. And also looking at Waga and Chimsa and Sugut.
Just got an update from Reed Coolset, Eric Gillis' training partner, and he is on pace for sub 2:10 marathon right now. And Rob Watson is about 10 seconds back from him. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing for Rob to be sitting 10 seconds back there. Hopefully he's got someone with him to work with. If he's all by himself, that can translate into a bad day in the long run if you do start to slip off of that group that you're running with. You don't want to be left alone. It's a lonely, lonely thing running by yourself in a marathon, particularly in the second half. But it's good to hear that that Gillis is still on pace for that sub 2:10 marathon. That could be huge, huge news if somebody gets under, if a Canadian gets under 2:10 today.
10 o'clock local time, almost 1.25 hours on the race clock here in Toronto. The elite women, aren't they moving well? And that is Flomina Chayach, I think, in the yellow to left of picture. The winner in Vienna in 2:24 back in April. She's had a wonderful year. Remember, she won there by more than 7 minutes. Ran 2 marathons last year, but neither of them was very good. Surprisingly. Well, there's an awful lot of administration goes on behind the scenes at races like this. And one of those administrators, if you want to call him that, is Mike the sign guy, and we caught up with him.
You know, being out on the course at the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon and making these whimsical signs has really made me look forward and circle that date, and people have come to expect me to be there and recognize me. I'm Mike Kolacek, and over the last little while I've traded in my running shoes for a marker and pistol board. So coming out on the course that day is really not just about just standing around, and when you see that look in their eyes and they're smiling at you, and they know that they're there and they're thanking you for being on the course that morning, it validates all the hard effort and the sacrifices they've had to make to train for that course. This, I think, is the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart. I had, at the time, my girlfriend was running a half marathon, and wanted to let her know who her #1 fan is. And I think it was quite clear who that was, this guy right here.
As a runner, to have a partner who supports the community and goes out and supports what people are doing and lets them know that all that time away from their family and the hard work that they've put in is being acknowledged by somebody. So I'm really proud of him. I think it's great what he does.
So this is the time that I stood at the top of a hill on a course, dressed up as Superman. And as you can see, it says, "You're my hero," and that really struck a chord with the runners that went out of their way to high-five me and thank me for being on the course. I remember this one runner about 2 years ago, older woman, started walking along the course, and she wasn't, halfway done the race. And I walked up beside her and literally put my arm around her and said, "I didn't come out to watch you walk." And she smiled and started running again. And it was an out and back route, and on the way back she was still running, and she blew kisses and thanked me for doing that. The energy that you can bring to the people that are on the course is intangible, right? You're gonna leave that day thinking, you know what, that was rewarding, that was validating. And I would challenge and say that you're gonna ask yourself, when's the next race? Because I really wanna be down there.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Tim. Hey, guess what, everybody? I found him. It is the one, the only. It is Mike, the sign guy. He's been out here. Look at this. Now, I love every year you can find him in a different costume. This year, you're dressed as a bear. He's got his sign ready for me yet. What's on the other side? I know you want me. Mike, how you doing?
Fantastic. Beautiful day. Runners got smiles on their faces. They're going out. They're pushing hard. They're sweating. What more can you ask for?
Absolutely. You told me that you've run this marathon how many times?
Half marathon. I've done it about 3 times. I think it was time for me to hang up my shoes and come out and support the runners that have worked hard to do this.
So this is really cool, though, because I don't think there are very many people that have been on both sides as a racer and as also part of the cheering station. Was that you're your own cheering station, the one and only?
Why not have fun with it, right? I mean, I could sleep in. I could, wipe the tiredness out of my eyes, but you know what? Let's come down here. Let's support the hard effort, the training that these folks have done, been away from their family and their friends for months now. And I mean, let's come out, beautiful day, beautiful city. Let's have a good time.
As you said, it is a beautiful day. And you know what? I have to admit, I know everyone's probably been talking about the weather nonstop today because we had the rain yesterday. And if you look at the forecast, I've been a weather anchor for almost 12 years now. And a forecast like this comes around once, in a blue moon sometimes, because it's the perfect day. And as a runner, how would you describe the conditions for today?
Ideal. It started off a little brisk, and slowly the sun came up, warmed things up, and you can see people are starting to peel off layers, and they're just having a great time. And look at the faces around here. I mean, people are just laughing, high-fiving. They're talking to people that they've just met on the course, and this is what running's all about. It's about community.
That's the one thing. I don't think I've ever seen as many clothes on the street as I have today because everyone's peeling it off as the weather starts to warm up a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm cozy in my outfit here, but I can tell you as soon as the race is over, I'm going to peel down as well. So just having a good time on the course.
And you said your girlfriend is running the race as well, hasn't she?
She has run. She trained hard this year to run the full marathon, and she suffered an injury, so she's out here cheering with me today.
She is, and so next year, what's the prognosis? Is she going to run? Or are you going to run?
She's aiming for running the Philly half in a couple of weeks' time, but certainly she's earmarked the Scotia Waterfront Marathon next year, so look for her.
Excellent. Well, look for Mike, the sign guy. As you can see, again, don't forget, check out on Twitter, #STWM. You'll find lots of pictures, lots of tweets going on, lots of activity out here with Mike and everybody else cheering on all of the amazing runners.
See me at the gates. That's where I'll be.
That's where we are, at the gates at the 17-kilometer mark.
Absolutely.
Great. I'll throw it back to you. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Melissa. Hey, Mike, what would you have to get paid to stand there dressed like that all day? Because it would take a few bucks for me, I can tell you.
I think I'd start at 1,000 and go from there.
Yeah, work upwards. Maybe a couple more noughts.
Maybe more than 1,000, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. Depends on how long. Marathon, 10,000. 5K, 1,000.
I don't know how much he's getting paid, but it's not enough. But brave man. I did like that sign. You are all nuts. I mean, it's one of those days where you can abuse somebody and they take it with a smile.
Absolutely.
anything that's happened to you during any of your races that sort of particularly inspired you along the way or helped you through a tough patch, or something that somebody said to you or anything, that any experience?
The thing, a little a recommendation someone gave to me about a year ago, which actually helps quite a bit, is just to smile and to thank the volunteers for being out there. Because when you think about it, all these volunteers at the water stations, for example, or the marshals, they're staying there. It's a cold day. Even though it's sunny, it's a cold day. That's a tough job. It's a thankless job for the most part. You're getting splashed with Gatorade constantly by 25,000 people. I think it's really important to thank the volunteers whenever you're running a race. And you know what? It actually helps you as well.
Well, these ladies are a little too busy to smile and thank the volunteers, at least until after their day's racing is done. I think that's Flamina Cejc at the front there in the yellow, who looks the most bullish at the moment for me of this lead ladies group. They're on schedule for something around 2:23. The pacemakers doing a great job. They really are. I think that's Courier in white, and in the green is Kogo. And just Kogo, of course, tall fella, just loping along, isn't he, at 2:23 tempo. But it's no mean task to hit exactly the right splits for the ladies. The good thing is that they are Kenyan. They could be chatting away in Swahili with some of the leading Kenyan ladies if needs be, but they're hitting the marks they're meant to be hitting. Here's that lead men's group, and Chimsa again is the one who looks most up for it. He's almost alongside the pacemakers here. The Ethiopian, who's very much amongst the favourites here today. The man who ran 2:05 last year. He's had a couple of wins amongst his 10 marathons. A win in Dago in 2010 in 2:08, and then in Prague last year, which was a 2:06 run. So Chimsa full of confidence, and at the moment with 1 hour 22 on the clock, looking very, very good indeed. There is Ed Whitlock. Looks like his day's going well.
Yeah, he's one of the smoothest runners you're going to see. He's got this smooth stride. He's 82 years old. He's originally from England, and he's now at 82 going for an age record. He's told me he wants to run somewhere in the 3:20s today for the marathon. He does the full marathon here in Toronto every fall. He's the oldest man to crack a 3-hour marathon, which he did in his mid-70s here in Toronto several years ago. He's just an extraordinary and an inspiring person, but very, very humble. When you talk to him, he says, "Oh, I don't like training all that much, and I'm getting old, and I'm, he runs, as he told you, he runs in a graveyard in Milton, Ontario, just outside of Toronto."
Well, I had a chat with him on Friday at the press conference, and I cannot believe he runs pretty high mileage. He's running 20, 30 kilometres at a time, but he trains in this graveyard, does a 400-metre loop, lap after lap after lap. I kid you not, his training is around a 400-metre loop, 200 yards from his house, around a cemetery. And that is, and yet you chat to him, and he's a really together guy. He seems pretty sane, but for me, you've got to be one brick short to do that.
And speaking of chatting with him, we sat down and had a talk with him recently.
So here's a man that's over 80 years old, that's got more than 15 records, and he just continues to set records every year.
We were, what is going on? And it was Ed Whitlock coming across the finish line, and he didn't even look tired.
I decided to do my first marathon. At that time, I was told I was too old, and I said no. Ed Whitlock's 72.
I heard that he does his runs are 30 kilometers a day through a cemetery.
Ed Whitlock invented the cane to slow down his competition.
I consider Ed a superhuman.
I think he's a hero to everybody that runs that marathon.
I got 28K at 1:24:20.
My name is Ed Whitlock, and I've become infamous, I suppose, for being the first man over 70 to run a marathon in less than 3 hours. Alan has been very supportive of me over the years, and I've had very good success here in running this course. I find today that I don't feel as though I'm running any different to what I used to run. I train in the graveyard because it's convenient. It's only 100 yards from my house. The objective is to go out and run 3 hours every day. Run is maybe sort of a euphemism because it's really not much more than a fast walk in a lot of ways. People say to me, well, how can you possibly run fast off of a training regime like that? I don't know. I don't know why that works for me, but it does. What advice can I give to someone who wants to run a marathon? Well, people have to find what works for them. And, you know, one size doesn't fit all. Train to race, that's what I'm in it for. And so as long as I'm able to race, I'll try and keep running for as long as I can. Try and set another record next year, I guess. I'll come back again.
I am still absolutely staggered. I mean, I've seen a few cemeteries, and that was a very nice cemetery. But would you want to train around it all day, lap after lap after lap?
I think I might opt for the 400-meter track over running through a 400-meter loop in a cemetery every single day.
I think I'd find it kind of depressing. It's almost prophetic. You know, if you're 82 and you're jogging around a cemetery, it's like, well, it's going to happen any time now, so I might as well be in the right place. No, but Ed actually is so full of life, so full of joie de vivre. He's a lovely fellow. And 82, God, if I'm like that at 62, I'll be more than happy.
I'll be happy if I'm still running at 45, so...
Oh, that's a bit pessimistic. But, you know, seriously, we talk about power to weight ratio, and Ed Whitlock clearly has got very little weight on him. There he is, having a good morning here in Toronto yet again. Does the training and moves well. I mean, he's got good flexibility, nice rhythm, quite a bouncy stride, and for him to have broken 3 hours at the age of 70, you know, this is a guy who's still running fabulous times for a marathon that a lot of young and middle-aged runners can only dream of running, and he's 82.
Well, sub-3 is one of those huge barriers, one of those, you know, crazy artificial barriers that recreational runners like to go at. And I mean, he was an incredible miler when he was in his early 20s. And it's funny you say about perfect size for a runner. He's 5'7", and he said he weighed in at about 115 to 117 pounds for this race. So, I mean, he's lean and mean, and he still has that great stride. He has perfect mechanics. I bet you if you analyzed his stride with some software, you would see that he's got that perfect running stride. He's right up on the forefoot. He uses his arms efficiently. Keeps his head forward a little bit. It's great.
Back to the lead men then. And the men approaching 30K. Now, if they're going to be on course record schedule at 30 kilometers, we're looking for around 1 hour 31 for these elite men. And they're now at 1:28.53 as I speak to you right now, and still that good group together. And this is all building really, really promisingly. Just looks like Burundane is beginning to struggle for the first time. Having said that, there's a little back to the Moroccan. He's in about 6th place at the moment, and Abdelrahim Burundane, the smiling 35-year-old Moroccan, who's only run 2:14 this year. That was for a 21st place in Otsu in Japan back in March. He's had a difficult year. He's had some problems with his Achilles. He says even funding problems are a challenge nowadays in Morocco. And though their federation, he says, has plenty of money. But he's battling back to them, isn't he? He's got quite a busy action.
He's got to make one of two choices here. He's either got to get back in, tuck back in with that group and survive this little bit of a tough stretch that he's having right now, or he's got to back off and decide to run his own race and hope some of these guys come back to him so that he can get a good place in the end. And it seems like the latter is what's happening. It seems like he's getting stretched out. He's just in that dead zone area where it's tough to keep contact. We might have lost him off the back end.
Well, Chimsa there, second to left, and the yellow just tucked in behind. The two pacemakers still looking strong. I think that's Sugut in orange there, Henry Sugut. Of course, the defending champion, Waga. We haven't seen much of him, and it has been hard to identify those athletes in the lead pack. So apology for not being able to bring you more of the names, the breakdown of the lead pack, both men's and women's. But that was 30K. The men have just gone through 30 kilometres, 1:30.15, there or thereabouts, at 30 kilometres. And just looking at the charts, that means they're on schedule for pretty much spot on 2:07. Maybe a click inside 2 hours and 7 minutes. Remember the race record here in Toronto, we should call it a race record rather than a course record because it's a new course, is 2:07.58. So at the moment they're heading for a race record by about 1 minute in the men's field. And it looks like we're going to have a real race in our hands too, because that's a pack of at least 3 racers, maybe 4, depending on how Budamdani is doing, tucked in behind these 2 pacemakers. It does look actually like we're down to 1 pacemaker, 51, and that is, just checking the name of that pacemaker, 51 is Terrer. What a good job he's doing to take them to and beyond 30k. I wonder if he's thinking about finishing, Mike.
Yeah. Well, you could do that if you want, but I wouldn't advise doing that. You save your legs for another either pacing job or your own race in the near future.
Well, Terrer going the extra yards here on behalf of those tucked in behind him. Chimsa is the man who is probably benefiting the most. He's really into the slipstream behind that pacemaker as they go through 3/4 distance here in this Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon of 2013. A really fabulous men's elite race building up, as it is in the women's as well. Now, we're joined here in the booth by a man who knows a thing or two about the streets of Toronto, Reid Coulsat. Reid, welcome on board.
Thanks a lot.
Now tell us about that little argument you had with the pavement or a roadway back in June, was it, when you came off your bike? Why are you not out there racing today?
Yeah, my initial plan was to race today, and then I fell off my mountain bike, broke my collarbone, and yeah, had to take 6 weeks off and was on the bike, and now I've just kind of push everything 6 weeks in the future. Doing a half marathon next weekend and a marathon in 6 weeks from now in Japan.
And that's the Fukuoka Marathon in Japan, one of the world's oldest and most deeply embedded with tradition races.
Yeah, it's a great marathon. I paced 30k there last year. I know the course, feel pretty comfortable with it, and if I can get a day like today, that'd be great.
Now, I mean, marathon running in Japan is virtually a religion, isn't it? It's just about their national sport. Do you get big crowds at Fukuoka?
Yeah, huge crowds, a lot of good elite runners. It's really well organized. It's great, great atmosphere to run there.
Now, Jerome Drayton ran the record in 1975 at Fukuoka. Was that a factor in you deciding to go back and run your fall marathon there?
Well, I think the timing just worked out, but it's an added bonus. So I think it's just really cool to be racing on the same streets that Jerome set the record, and who knows if it will still be the record by the time I lace up in 6 weeks. I might be chasing a different record.
So what's going on out there? We've been following Eric here. We've got a really good Twitter feed going on right now. I noticed that you tweeted out that he's running sub 2:10 pace. Is that still the case? Last time you left him?
Yeah, I mean the last update I got was halfway, so I'm sure there's been a few more updates since then. But he was 64.42, so quite a bit under 2:10.
Looking solid.
Looking really good. He has a couple pacers there. Yeah, he's just he's in the zone, and he's been training really well, and he's got a good shot at the Canadian record. So.
Now that lead men's pack are moving along really well. Are you kind of frustrated you're not out there, or are you just happy that you've got 5 or 6 weeks where you've got your own race in Fukuoka? What's going through their minds now? They're at 3/4 distance. I guess they're just beginning to feel the pain now.
Yeah, I mean these guys are going to be definitely feeling the pain. They're going to be coming up actually to a pretty big hill at about 35k, and that will likely separate them. And from there it's just going to be who's the toughest and kind of hold on.
Well, Chimsa looks the toughest at the moment in the yellow there for Ethiopia, and you've actually sort of embraced the whole East African thing and been out to Kenya yourself and done some training. I mean, not Ethiopia, but Kenya. How did you find it out there?
Yeah, it's great. You can kind of watch the races and see how these guys train and race, and that's go out with the front group and hang on for as long as you can. And if you don't do it one race, you try to hang on further the next one, rather than pace yourself and just finish races. It's all about winning, and it's a different attitude. And just to throw myself into the mix, you learn a lot, and it makes you tougher.
I was talking earlier about how Mo Farah has adopted the Kenyan lifestyle, the Kenyan mentality, probably more importantly, after his experiences of living with them in London and living with them out in the Rift Valley. Did you see that, and have you adjusted things a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty boring life as far as everything else goes. I run and I recover and try to get to bed at a good time and stuff. And I know Mo yeah, I started living with the Kenyans in Teddington and really saw, you know, what it takes to be a runner. And, you know, I've heard these stories, and, you know, I'm trying to mimic that as well.
And you still feel you've got plenty of good years running in your legs?
Well, I know I have a few good months at least, and then I take it 1 year at a time from there.
Okay. Reed, what's your prediction for the boys today? I mean, Eric, for example, in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eric looking as good as he was when I saw him out there. That he's gonna be really close to that Canadian record. So hopefully he's just under it, and maybe take a shot at 2:10. You know, it's in that neighborhood. And yeah, these leaders, I'm guessing they're gonna break the all-comers record, the course record today. So very exciting stuff, and the women too.
They're
you
flying.
know, yeah, the Lanny and Krista on 2:26 pace through halfway. Absolutely blazing, and Ludmilla right behind him too.
Let's talk about that a little bit, Mike. I mean, that's exactly right. The Canadian girls are on 2:26 tempo. That's a huge PB for those who are at that tempo for the Canadians. Do you think they've pushed it a bit too hard?
It's very risky. 2:27, I would say, is a little bit safer. But you know, if they feel that they're in that sort of shape right now, they have to go for it. And even as you were saying before to me, off camera before, is some runners like to build in a little bit of a fade or a cushion in the second half. There's different strategies you can take. There's the even, the negative, or a slight positive split.
Well, here we see this men's elite race with Chimsa in the yellow. I'm still trying to identify the gentleman to the right of picture there, but the gap is beginning to appear behind them, and we're down to 2, I think. And this is great to see. Not only good racing, but really good running against the clock. The next significant split we're looking for, I guess, for these men after the 30K is 35K, but we're certainly on schedule at the moment for something around 2:07 or just inside it. We're looking if they're going to be on course record schedule at 35K for 1 hour 46:10, so they're about 6 or 7 minutes away from that at the moment. Interesting times here in Toronto, and interesting times for the world of marathon running as well. When you look at the world record read going in Berlin 3 weeks back, you know, 2:03:23. People are still talking about the 2-hour marathon. I'm one of those who doesn't think it'll ever happen, actually. But 2 hours 23:23, and then last week in Chicago, only about 20 seconds off the world record. It seems almost every race at the moment is pushing back its barriers, and it looks like it's going to happen here today.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's like Roger Bannister in the 4-minute mile. You know, the first guy kind of does it, and everybody else thinks they can do it too. And it's really exciting times. You know, when I was watching Chicago the other weekend, I just, you know, I couldn't believe it. 2 guys under 2:05, and or 2 guys under 2:04, sorry. And it, you know, it's like it's a normal thing now, I guess, and it's nuts.
Do you think? Do you think it is just an adjustment in attitudes? And I mean, with the Africans, of course, there are hordes and hordes of them. There are hordes of athletes now taking up distance running, hoping to become a hero, hoping to earn a good living out of it. And there is a rags to riches element to it too for the East Africans, which is not the same in the West. But do you think it's just an adjustment of attitude?
Yeah, and it's also an adjustment of more guys moving to the marathon. When I've gone to Kenya in the last few years to train, I've noticed that a lot more guys are focusing on the marathon. They're focusing on road races because that's where the money is. You know, it's hard to make a living, you know, as a 13:10 runner in the 5K, but the equivalent marathon time will get you quite a bit of pocket cash. So yeah, guys are moving to the marathon quicker, and a lot more of them are doing it, and just, you know, more guys is just making it more competitive.
I think that's one of the problems. That Solomon, by the way, Solomon Kiptu, the 26-year-old Kenyan, who is pushed to the front now and pushing on hard, and that's a long, powerful stride he's got there. He's got about 5 meters on Deresa Chimsa of Ethiopia, so it's very much a Kenya against Ethiopia dust-up at the moment. And Kiptu, I can tell you, has a personal best from Eindhoven last October, exactly a year ago, of 2 hours, 8 minutes 30. At the moment, he's heading for something around 2 minutes quicker than that, so this is fabulous running from Solomon Kiptu. But Chimsa is not finished. He's tucked into the slipstream of the Kenyan. We've got a classic duel now building up for this next 25 minutes or so, Mike.
I think that Chimps is playing this the right way here. He's just letting Kiptu do all the work, and this is a tough stretch of the course. Reed, tell us a little bit about this part of the race. What's it like running out in this section of the East End?
Well, you know, it's not quite as popular here for the spectators, so it gets a little bit quiet, and this is when you're hurting. So it's a really tough part of the course, and you really have to focus. But you know, other than the one hill over the DVP, it's actually fairly flat, and you know, you can still keep your pace up as long as your legs, you can still feel your legs at this point.
There is one part of this course that's a little bit different than last year, Reed, where they go into what Alan Brooks described to me as the Gordian knot, where they have to go up the Bayview extension, and they do about 8 turns in a very short period of time. Is that a part of the race where you would try to capitalize on this scenario, particularly if you're in front, like Kiptoo is right now? Yeah, well, you know, especially if guys are chasing, if you can get out of sight, you know, it's like out of sight, out of mind. You know, you want to put some distance on the other competitors. I mean, these two guys are obviously still really close. They're eyeing each other, and you know, they're probably just focused on the win right now. You know, trying to beat each other at this point in the game.
Really, really hard to tell who's the man, isn't it, at the moment? Solomon Kiptoo is doing the aggressive running. For my money, he looks like he's got the strongest stride, Reed. I mean, you can look at Chimsad there in the background. He's got more of a sort of pitter-patter up on his toes gait, hasn't he? Whereas Solomon Kiptoo here, very powerful, the shoulders rocking from side to side a little bit, but impossible to tell here with about 25 minutes of running to come who to put your money on.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kiptoo looks pretty strong. You know, if you're going to follow, you usually follow a little bit closer than Chimsa is every once in a while. So that makes me think that that Kiptoo has a control of the pace, and he's the one in the driver's seat right now.
I think this is some surge, Mike. I mean, look at the gap that's opened up behind them very, very quickly. You can almost not see a single athlete in the background. I think there's one athlete way, way back in the distance. But this is a powerful surge, and it'll be very interesting to get that 40-kilometer split because they are tearing down the road at the moment. One of the great advantages, of course, for the Ethiopians and the Kenyans, they've got so many mentors, if you like, and great heroes to follow. You know, the Haile Gebrselassie and Bekele's, of course, for the Ethiopians, and for the Kenyans, there's Paul Turgat, amongst others, who is the great hero. And I think it's so much easier when you've got loads and loads of compatriots who are running at a similar standard.
Yeah, I mean, that happens anywhere, you know. You show up to a good university, and then the seniors are running fast, and so you believe you can run fast, and it's just like that on a world scale with the best runners in the world when you go to E10 or Addis or whatever. And I know when I go there, and you know, David Rudisha's on the track, and you see him running fast, it's, you know, well, you know, this is a dirt track, and you don't really need much more. Rudisha's here, so you get that belief that you know, you can run fast, you know, with what you have.
I mean, it's actually catching on everywhere, isn't it? You trained very hard with Eric Gillis. Of course, you've got your own little group in effect. In the UK, it's beginning to work in squads. The Kenyans and the Ethiopians have been doing it for years, training in huge squads. There's groups now in Eldoret, apparently, up in the Rift Valley, where about 100 guys go out running in the mornings together.
Oh, easy. Yeah, I did a fartlek in Eldoret this past year with over 100 guys. Fartleks in E10 with 250 people, and oh yeah, it's unbelievable. Well, here's a little update on Eric Gillis. He went through 32K. He has 10K left, and he needs to run about 31 minutes for 10K.
So he's on the jog.
Yeah, and he's been running each of his 10Ks below 31 minutes. So he's been on that pace. He's been about 3:05, so that's 30:50. And if he can continue on that pace, he's looking to hit the Canadian record.
That's exciting.
Okay, Darissa Chimsa now has taken the lead from Solomon Kiptoo, and this looks like a significant surge as well. Maybe he was fooling us, fooling Kiptoo as well, but Darissa Chimsa of Ethiopia, the 26-year-old, leads now with, what, about 20 minutes of running to come here in Toronto. And we actually had a chance to catch up with the Ethiopian before the race.
ጭምሳ ይባላሉ። የመጣሁት ከኢትዮጵያ ነው። ጥሩ ትሬኒንግ አድርጌ ነው መጣሁት። ጥሩ ተፎካካሪ ሆናለሁ ብዬ አስባለሁ። ውድድሩ ላይ የሚወስነው አየር ሁኔታ ነው። አየር ሁኔታ ጥሩ ከሆነ እና ተፎካክረን የምንሮጠው ልጆች በጥሩ ሁኔታ የሚሄዱ ከሆነ ጥሩ ተፎካካሪ ሆነን ጥሩ ሰዓት መሮጥ ነው የምንፈልገው ማለት። ስለ ሰዓቱ እንዳልኩ ጥሩ ተፎካካሪ ሆነን የምንሄድ ከሆነ እስከ 2:07 2:06 መሮጥ ፍላጎቴ ነው።
Well, the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon here in 2013. If you have just joined us in the last few minutes, Welcome to live coverage of this race on this glorious Sunday morning in Toronto, where we're reaching the latter stages now of the elite race. Dorese Chimsa leads. That was him being interviewed just now. He said, if I'm going well, I'll be happy, and he is going well. He said, if the weather's good, I'll be happy, and the weather is very good in Toronto, and he said, I'm hoping to run 2:07. His personal best is 2:05. Well, it looks like he is going to run under 2:07. Now, in second place, Solomon Kiptoo, digging deep. The gap's about 20 meters. This is one of the uphills. Reed, is this a tough one?
This is the big hill. This is the one that has always put the pain in my legs. You can't really tell by the television, but you can probably tell by their pace. They're slowing down, especially Kiptoo looks like he's falling off. And that's because this is it's a pretty long hill and quite steep. And once they get over this, though, it's downhill and flat for the rest of the way, but lots of turns.
If you're Chimsa, what do you do here? Do you attack? Do you sense that weakness and go for it here, or do you ease back a little bit and save your energy at this point?
Oh no! If you smell blood, you go for it. At this point in the race,
it seems like that's maybe what he's doing as well.
He's a powerful lad, isn't he? I mean, he's barrel-chested. He's got really powerful shoulders on him. He's huge compared with a lot of the Kenyan Ethiopian runners who tend to be very, very long and thin. He looks more like cross-country runners to me, and he's negotiated that hill well. But actually, as we say that, so Kiptoo in the background has certainly not given up. And this is one of those horrible situations where Chimsa, I haven't seen him glance around yet. He doesn't know if this surge has done much damage. But I guess the answer is it hasn't done that much, Reed. I mean, that gap is, what, about 5 seconds? Not a big gap.
Yeah, 5-second gap. It's not much with, still good chunk of racing to go. And, Kiptoo might have just been saving himself on the hill as well. A lot of people use that as a tactic. They'll just not push up the hill and, let the other guy burn himself out. And, maybe he's coming down in the downhill right now, going to catch up a bit.
Well, we are seeing one of the fastest races of the 2013 racing season. Some 24 men have broken 2:07 in the world so far this year. Of course, the top of the heap is the Kenyan Wilson Kipsang, who set the world record in Berlin exactly 3 weeks ago today. 2 hours, 3 minutes and 23 seconds. We're not going to see a 2:03 here, but it could well be a sub 2:07, a 2:06 run from Chimsa. And I guess having Kiptoo in the background there is just what he needs, Michael. It's actually keeping him on his toes. He's having to keep applying the pressure to himself to stay clear. If he'd got a gap of a minute or something, he could probably ease back on the throttle.
Absolutely. With about 18, 17 minutes left of running, it actually might benefit Chimsa more if Kiptoo comes and starts biting at his heels and keeping him honest here. But I don't think that the race is over at all by any stretch. I mean, we could go through that twisty portion of the race that we're talking about here, and that could change the entire face of this race in the next few minutes.
Well, here is that, I think they're negotiating now the beginning of that Gordian knot, aren't they, that we were talking about?
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of turns in the next 2 kilometers here. They just went through a 90-degree turn, and I don't know this part of the course. This is new this year to me, so we'll see what happens. I
mean, Reed, you've run a world-class marathon. You know what this feeling is like at sort of 35 kilometers into a marathon when it's really beginning to hurt. How much does a right-hand turn like that affect you? Does it take your rhythm and sap your strength, or are you able to sort of ease around it smoothly?
For me, I always tend to lose a bit of speed. I know at the Olympic marathon course, they had a lot of turns, and that really slowed us down, especially when you're not in a pack. If you're in a pack, there's somebody coming off that turn quickly, and it tends to pick up. But when you're alone out here like these guys, it's easy to slow down a little bit around a corner and take your time to pick the speed back up when you're an hour 50 into a race and your legs are really tired.
Well, Chimsa is strong, isn't he? He's got a slight bobbing of the head too, hasn't he, just to drive himself on. But he's got an interesting gait. He's really almost tiptoes along, doesn't he? Most marathon runners by this point are landing on their heels. They're clumping down. They might be pumping hard with the arms to drive on strongly, keep the legs coming through. But Mike, he looks like he's a 1,500-meter runner almost.
Yeah, he almost seems like he's backing off his stride a little bit. He doesn't fully extend, which is good for the marathon because you don't want to fully extend the marathon. You don't want to waste all that extra energy, and that causes a lot of lower leg cramping and whatnot when you do that. He's got a little bit of a grimace on the face, but it's hard to tell whether that's determination or suffering. It's probably a combination of both at this point. But he's looking pretty good right now.
Well, a little update on the Canadian women. They went through 144 for 30K, which puts them still on 226 pace. So they're still on Canadian record pace, and that's Lanny Marchand and Krista Duchesne. So they're running very well through 30K here.
It could well be a truly historic day for Canadian distance running. Maybe the national records will go down in both men's and women's races. That looks to be on the cards at the moment here in Toronto, as we see Derese Chimsa of Ethiopia negotiating his last few kilometres, his last few miles, and that gap has certainly grown back to Solomon Kiptu of Kenya. On paper, Chimsa should beat him. He's about 3 minutes quicker, but Chimsa is certainly working hard for every single metre that he's gaining between himself and the Kenyan in second place.
He's got to be careful here to run those tangents in order to not lose any time. If I'm Kiptu at this point, I'm just thinking to myself, run the shortest version of this course I possibly can without going off the course and see if I can make up a few seconds. And for example, in the New York City Marathon, when you enter into Central Park, there's all those twists and turns. And have been runners in the past that can cut those turns really hard and make up bit by bit by bit. Think of Jones cutting that little bit by bit, and catching up and then taking the win at the end.
You don't see too many elite athletes nowadays, Reid, who actually, this kind of level athlete, who actually hit the wall and have a really bad last couple of kilometres. But I mean, of course, in marathon running, you always talk about, there was talk in the old days about the wall, where your body just absolutely runs out of resources, runs out of energy, and you're reduced to a jog almost. It doesn't happen to athletes of this sort of caliber generally. Have you ever experienced something close to it, where perhaps in the last 5 or 6K you've had real problems?
Yeah, the Olympic marathon at 39K, I totally hit the wall. I went from 21st place to 27th place within 3 kilometers, and that was because I wasn't able to handle my drinks in the heat, and stuff was coming up. So I didn't have enough fuel reserve. Yeah, but you rarely see it in a marathon. But I think it does happen. You don't really see it in the leaders. These guys are still, they're running off adrenaline and they're feeling good. It's the guys who got dropped, and they're falling off pace, and they're not feeling good about themselves. Those are the ones that really hit the wall, and you just don't see that because the cameras aren't following those guys. So it still happens to the elite runners, but very, very seldom to the leader or the guy, chasing a record or stuff like that.
Mike, I was going to say, has he negotiated most of the hills now? Is it flat running from here on?
It is, yeah. That looked like it was the last little climb that we're probably going to see in this race, and he seems like he's doing a really good job with it. This is where, if I were him, I would be taking advantage of it. Get yourself right to that comfortable edge of your aerobic ability at this stage in a race. Keep efficient, keep the arms moving. Try not to swing things around laterally too much, and just see how much time you can put on the guy behind you. And he must be feeling really good right now, really excited.
Well, yeah, he actually ran a 2:55K to put Kiptu away. So I don't think we could tell from the television here how fast he picked it up, but a 2:55K, towards the end of a marathon, very strong. He must be feeling really good to, throw that down to, separate himself from the rest of the guys. And yeah, he's obviously looking to run a really good time here.
So he's at around 38 kilometres there. He's to the top left of picture. You can see the 38K towards the left side of that really knotty, messy part of the course, and then it'll be free running for the next 10, 12 minutes or so, which is roughly what he's got left to do. But Chimsa, well, this is his first marathon of 2013. He's left it very, very late. He is the man, remember, who had 3 incredible races last year, 2:05 and then a brace of 2:06s, which is almost unheard of. I mean, it's hard to imagine. Have you tried 3 marathons in 1 year?
No, I haven't tried more than 2.
It's not common, and but of course Rob Watson's on his 4th race of the year today.
Yeah, that's it's a bit different because Rob did one of those races just going for money for the Canadian Championships. But he ran a tough race at Boston, went for Ottawa for the money, so a bit more controlled effort, and then really tough race at the World Championships. So yeah, this is quite the schedule for Rob, and I'm sure he'll learn a lot from this and maybe never do it again. But he's having fun, and he loves that stuff, so it's good for him.
So Mike, looks like we're on for a course record.
It's looking that way. I mean, a lot can change in the last few kilometers of a race, especially in the situation he's in right now, where he must know at this point that he's sitting all alone. I think he was able to get a little bit of a look when he looped around there, and he's coming back on that last part of the knot before he gets out of it. He must know what kind of a gap he's got. Now it's a question of how much do you have left in you? How much do you have left to push harder And I mean, a huge incentive is, of course, that $35,000 that's sitting there at the finish line if he can do that. And I can imagine he's probably throwing everything he's got at it.
Well, there is the card of Derese Chimsa from Kore Ida in Ethiopia, the 27-year-old. He's run under 2:08 in 5 times in the past 3 years and represented Ethiopia at the World Half Marathon Championships in Kavarna, Bulgaria last year. And came out with a silver medal in 60:51. Anything down towards 60 minutes for the half marathon is world-class running. That personal best does make him the fastest on paper in the race today. And he's come into it fresh, which is really important, Reid, isn't it? I think, you know, if you're not recovering from training in the build-up to a marathon, then you've got to pull back and you know, maybe even look at a target further in the future. But he's had a tough 2012, and he seems to have got it exactly right, and all credit to him.
Yeah, you know, talent doesn't go away that quickly, but, you know, injuries and other things can happen that derail your training, but you know, when you get back, you get back to that level, and he's proven that, you know, he's back at that level. And actually, you can see now on the screen, I think that was the hill that they had run over. So you can kind of get a grip of, you know, what that hill was like, and it looks like they're coming back up again.
It looks like he's leaning into a hill right here.
So it is a very tough part of the course, and he'll be happy to get through this part and cruise. You know, in the next few K, the crowds are going to start building up, and it's going to get a lot louder, a lot flatter. Yeah, once you get through this part, I think it's good.
He's got about 10 minutes of running to go. I cannot believe the weather here in Toronto this morning. It is absolutely glorious, like a summer's day out there, even if not quite as warm as a summer's day, compared with yesterday when it was grey and pouring with rain just about all the daylight hours that we had. But Chimsa here has taken the bull by the horns with about 12 kilometres to go in Toronto, and has pushed on, and now with just a couple of kilometres to go, about maybe 2.5 kilometres to go, he's opened up a big gap on Solomon Kiptu of Kenya and is surely heading for victory. And Michael, just adding up that prize money he's got coming his way, it's big prize money, isn't it? I mean, 20 for the win, 15 for getting under 2:07 if he does, and 35 for the course record.
It's a huge amount of money, as we spoke about earlier in the broadcast. That is times, you know, by about what, 10 when you bring that back to Ethiopia, and it goes a long way. I mean, Reid, you were in Kenya, which is, you know, not dissimilar to Ethiopia in terms of the economic climate. What's the sort of price? What's $55,000 get you in Kenya?
Well, I'll tell you, you can get an avocado for 5 cents in Kenya. So
it's a lot of avocados.
If that's anything to compare by. But yeah, I mean, you know, $40,000, you'll buy a, you know, a 3-bedroom house, two bathrooms, you know, like great place, and you know, yeah, 40,000. So yeah, it goes a long way.
And Ethiopia, I guess, pretty similar economics. I know that the average annual salary in Kenya is $1,700. So you go back with $10,000, you're virtually a millionaire. You know, you go back with $100,000 or more, which these guys sometimes get for winning the big races. And for Chimsa, I'm sure those same economics apply. You know, this is going to be a $70,000 payday on the face of it if he breaks 2:07 before you throw in shoe company bonuses and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, this is life-changing for these guys, and you know, that's why they're heroes, and that's why everybody in Kenya and everybody in Ethiopia, you know, they wanna run. They see the Land Rovers rolling down the street, and it's the runners who have them. It's you know, these are the big dogs back in the country, and when you get that kind of population chasing you know, one sport, you know, you're going to get a lot of talent.
Tony Revis, the running commentator, who's a friend of yours, recently wrote a really great blog about how elite East African runners are like, they're powerful like CEOs in East Africa because of their earning power and also because of their influence in their community. Reid, I can imagine with a lot of these guys that you've come to know in Kenya, in East African runners, Kenyan Ethiopians, a lot of them actually do quite a bit for their community with that money as well.
Yeah, they do. You know, they're opening up schools and you know, apartment buildings and employing a lot of people. So yeah, they do a lot of good things, and you know, they invest their money. Hope most of them do it wisely, and yeah, they you know, they're very they contribute a lot to the economy there.
So almost 2 hours on the clock. It clicks by now as we see that clock on screen, and Derese Chimsa surely heading for a victory here in the 2012 2013 Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. I'm getting a little bit behind myself there, folks. But what a run he has had. He surely now is on Front Street, heading towards the finish.
He's on 2:06.5 pace still, I believe. That was the 40K mat that we just went by there. He is dead on 2:06.5, which is a great, great run. What's it like, Reed, in this section of the course? You know, you're coming back into the city, back to the home stretch. Are you excited at this point? I mean, needless to say, you're excited. But what's the feeling like? Is it like a tractor beam?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very exciting part of the course because you start off and the crowds are big, and then it kind of slowly dwindles down, and then they start building back up, and you definitely smell the finish line because you've crossed the 40K mat. You know, you're in that final stretch, and the crowds are just starting to get loud again, and yeah, very exciting time, and you just do that final push to the finish line.
It's exciting stuff. We're almost done here on the men's race.
Yeah, in the men's race, we'll bring you news of the women's race as soon as we can, but on Front Street, Therese Chimsa now heading for glory in Toronto, and surely a course record. And for Chimsa, this will be his day of days. He's had a couple of wins in Daegu and Prague over the last recent years. Indeed, in Prague last year, he won in 2:06.25. He might even threaten that time here today. His personal best, a mighty fast 2:05 on the dead flat Dubai course, which takes place every January. But he is moving well, isn't he? And he's working hard with the arms too to keep those legs coming through. It's like a middle distance runner. You know, if they say if your legs are going, keep pumping with the arms. He looks in really good shape. He looks like he's been in the gym as well.
He looks really strong. Reed, I guess these guys, they're doing gym work as well as, running 2-3 times a day, or doing some sort of work, strength work as well.
Yeah, I mean, from what I can see, the top guys have gym memberships, and they're going to the gym, and they're doing the little course routine as well. Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure some of it's probably just natural too. A lot of the guys that even do gym work still look like rakes. So maybe Chim's, he's probably maybe just a bit naturally bigger, but looks like a very strong runner, and you can tell now he's definitely has his sights on setting a fast time to capitalize on the different bonus structures for that he can get for under 2:07 and whatnot.
Well, somewhere behind him is last year's champion Salih Waga, the Ethiopian, the defending champion. He, ironically, is a training partner of Derase Chimsa. But Chimsa is the man who's come out of 2012 and entered 2013 in the best form. And here we are in October 2013, his very first race of the year. 2:03 on the clock. He keeps checking his watch. He knows exactly what's going on as he passes those kilometer markers. And the grimace is there now. It's been there actually for about 20 minutes. But he's working very, very hard indeed as he approaches downtown. Derase Chimsa passes one of those rock bands on the course. And the World Championship silver medalist last year in the half marathon is heading for gold in effect here in Toronto. There's no doubt about it. The officials at the finish line have the tape stretched across in his name, waiting for him. The Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon of 2013 will be very, very special. It will resonate around the world of distance running. There's no doubt about that. Glorious conditions here today for the racers. All 5,000 of them in the marathon, 25,000 of them out on the streets of Toronto. Michael, it has been a special day, and I guess you ran to Chicago last week. You're 2:38, but do you wish you were out there as well? It looks great.
This is good. This is a good day for running. I mean, I would have taken today as well as Chicago last week. You're always looking for nice, cool, dry conditions, and that's what they got today. I think today would have been really exciting to have been out there, but that said, with the marathon a week old in my legs, I'm pretty happy I'm sitting here with you guys right now, not running.
Yeah, I mean, today would have been a perfect day to race. I woke up this morning, kind of came outside. I was like, oh, wish I'd not broken my collarbone in the summer, but these things happen, and glad it worked out for these guys. And Eric's just been training really well. It gives him a good opportunity for the Canadian record. Laney Marchand and Krista Duchesne also still on pace for that Canadian record, and this is the kind of day you need. You don't get to race too many marathons in a year. Maybe get 2 marathons. So you got to get going, and here comes Chimsa. maybe what?
He's flying, isn't he?
90 seconds to go.
Still going well. Chimsa 2:05 on the clock. The course record, remember, by Kenneth Mungara of Kenya back in 2010 was 2:07.58. Darese Chimsa surely is going to break that now. Trains with last year's champion. He failed to finish the World Championships back in 2009. That was one of the lows of his career, but this is very much a high. 2:05.42, his personal best. That's gone. It's not going to be a personal best, but that matters not a jot for the Ethiopian 26-year-old here today, because he has destroyed with a very, very powerful second half. A really high-caliber field here in Toronto. Chimsa grimacing. You can see the teeth now. This is hurting. Every step is hurting, but every step is carrying him closer to the line. And watch the clock. We're hoping it's going to be under 2:07. Chimsa it is. It will be the second Ethiopian win, remember, here in Toronto. Last year, Waga was the first Ethiopian men's winner ever in the city of Toronto. His time was 2:10.36 on a difficult day for running. But this is oh so much quicker in Toronto 2013. To the right of picture there, glancing down towards the final bend, is Alan, the race director. The bikes pull away with 300 meters to go, and Chimsa there giving them a weird glance. We were hoping he wouldn't get taken off track. They were warned about it yesterday at the technical meeting. Now he's inside of the line. Chimsa then drives towards the line, and the crowd at the finish roar him home as in the clock goes just past 2:07. That matters not, because the course record has been absolutely smashed. 2:07.06 unofficially there for Darese Chimsa, and the Ethiopian has taken the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon title of 2013 in spectacular fashion. A course record by about a minute and a half for the Ethiopian, who deserves that win so richly after a marvelous second half of the race.
Oh, he executed a perfect second half. He let Kiptoo do all of the work for a few kilometers, through those tough kilometers into the 30s, when you get into the 30+ K kilometers. And then after that, he took it over and ran the hard stretches by himself and created a huge gap. Fantastic.
Chimsa's worked for that one. Now, Reid, you've had some great marathon days. You know, when you made the Olympic team here a couple of years back, it must have been, the adrenaline must have been pumping through your system once you crossed the line. But what is that blend like between the elation and the absolute fatigue?
Oh, it's just amazing when you finish a marathon. I think no matter what, even if you've suffered, but you know, to accomplish your goal, crossing the line, there's no other feeling like it. And you know, he must, you know, Chimsa must be really happy right now, and hopefully down the line here we're going to see a few more happy faces. You know, Eric's still on Canadian record pace. You know, what are we at, 2:08.30? So you know, hopefully he comes in the next 90 seconds, and you know, maybe the women as well. I'm not sure what the top women are running, but they looked like they were moving on really well. You know, through when I was out on the course there.
Well, we're expecting Solomon Kiptoo to come across the line in second place. That winning time, just to confirm for you, unofficially from our booth here, 2 hours, 7 minutes and 6 seconds. It's a huge leap forward for this race. A course record by what? About 52 seconds, something like that.
I just can't believe how much distance he put on Kiptoo in the last, you know, 6K there. Well, there he goes.
He is there.
There is Kiptoo now.
What about 2 minutes?
2 minutes in such a small period of time. That's unbelievable.
That's how well Chimsa was moving. So, yeah, now we cross our fingers for this Canadian record here. I mean, I might actually just
remind
I might just shoot out of here if Eric crosses the line.
Understandable.
Just remind us, Michael, 2:10.09 is the record. And
39 years old, the record. Jerome Drayton set it in 75 in Fukuoka, which Reid's going to be running this December. It's such a huge wall for Canadians in this sport, and it'll be really exciting if Eric is able to get under that. It'd be unbelievable. We're going to find out in a matter of seconds here.
I'm just looking at my stopwatch here, and I've got 2:09.30. As you can see on the clock above the line, for some reason that gives that's getting the 2:10.
Yeah, that's right. I'm at 2:10.
It is 2:10. Well. Okay, so I've lost 30 seconds somewhere. But 2:10 it is now.
I thought for sure Eric was going to beat it by 1 second again. Just that was his thing here.
Oh.
I think he's, you know,
it's going to be so close.
Even a PB would be really good for him. He's had a really tough year since the Olympics. It's only been the last couple of months that he's really been clicking along with his training. But I was really surprised at just how he turned around when he got focused on this marathon. His training came around and he was on it. He might be looking at the second, if he's coming in soon, he'll still be the second fastest Canadian. Oh, that's not him.
That's
unless he got some sun there.
Just looking there at which one of the Ethiopians that was, I think, coming through. And I think it might have been Ayanu. But the winning time here was clearly a dominant one. He's won by almost exactly 2 minutes, Michael.
That's impressive. I mean, and he put on 2 minutes in a really short period of time, as Reed was saying before, in 5-6 kilometers. To bear your competition like that just shows the strength that he had and the importance of running with somebody else. And when you get left alone, how quickly things change, specifically in the end of a marathon.
And I think that's the fourth placer coming through in about 2:11:20 there. It is hard to identify the athletes coming through with those camera shots, but we will bring you the full results as quickly as we can.
Well, the crowd's getting really loud, so I'm guessing this is Eric Gillis is coming in soon here. He'll probably just miss his personal best, but a really good run for him today. You know, that's going to be his second time under 2:12 if he comes in. Yeah, second. Yeah, so his second fastest time, only missed by 20.
Was that 2:11:58?
2:11:45, I think.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah,
that's a fantastic.
Or 2:11:48 maybe. Yeah, fantastic. You know, he's had a rough year, and
but you train with him every day. I mean, he'll have real mixed emotions about that, won't he? Because he was really hoping to get under 2:10, really get that Canadian record.
You know what? I think if he looks back at the whole year, he should be very happy with that run. You know, there shouldn't be any disappointment, but yeah, of course, he really was in shape for a personal best. He really was in shape for 2:11, and 2:10 was in the cards as well. You know, if everything had gone according to plan, and obviously the last 5K for him was probably a bit tougher than he expected, and he's usually a really good finisher in the last 5K. So yeah, he'll swallow it with some time.
He's had to pull out of 2 marathons this year, so with problems with his sacroiliac joint at the small of his back. He was saying to me, he went out to Kenya with you for 7 weeks, and for the first 4 weeks out there, he couldn't even do any training. He couldn't swim. He could just do a little bit of strengthening work in the gym, but he had to be really, really careful about it. And so 2 marathons he's been planning through this year. Neither of them he could start. I guess he was just glad to get to the start line today, never mind about the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, when Eric started this build-up 14 weeks ago, he wasn't even that confident on finishing, and 2 weeks in, it was like, okay, things are going well. I should be able to finish. A couple weeks later, he's thinking, I could probably go under 2:13, have a decent showing at Scotia, and then a few weeks later, it's like, I think I can PB. And then with a few weeks ago, there's Rob Watson.
Rob came in right around 2:13.5. That'll be a very small PB.
That's going to be about a 7-second PB for Rob.
Hey,
so
you take every second at this point.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if it's your 4th marathon in 7 months.
I know, really impressive considering.
And same thing with Rob. He's probably going to be disappointed he didn't hit the goal he wanted that he set out for today. But I think when he looks back at the year and he sees that he's run 4 marathons and his last one was a personal best, he can be nothing but happy. He should be really happy with that. It's he went for it today too, which was good for him. I know with myself, just having gone for the Canadian record a couple of times, it gives you confidence the next time you go for it. You've been up to 20K, you've been up to 30K at that pace, and you just hope that next time you can go a bit further. So a great stepping stone for Rob as well today, and good signs for Canadian marathoning.
And I guess actually it was a bit of a shoe-in anyway, but the qualifying time for the Commonwealth Games next year for you guys is 2:15, so they've both got that box ticked now. And now it doesn't necessarily mean they're automatically selected, but it's a pretty strong push towards that Canadian vest.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you don't run under 2:15, you have no shot. And these guys they crunch 2:15, right? So if say that the team has a select numbered going there, the further you can get under 2:15, the better you're going to be relative to the other athletes in the other events. So they look like they're good for Commonwealths.
Now, assuming everything goes well for you in Fukuoka, and you become another guy who's gone under 2:15, the Commonwealth Games qualifying standard, that is the next big championship, I guess, for you guys to focus upon. Where do you stand on the Commonwealths?
I've been there before. I ran the 5K in 2006 and had a great experience. Overall, my athletic experience wasn't that great, so I'd like to to get back there and actually do something in the Commonwealth Games.
If selected, you'll run in Glasgow.
I haven't decided yet for sure, but I would definitely consider it.
Well, there's the leading woman, and moving well is Flomina Chayet. She started here as one of their favourites, certainly the Kenyan, the winner in Vienna back in April in 2:24. And it looks from this shot as though she's on her own. She's still got the company of one of the pacemakers there. That looks like 58, that pacemaker. I thought it was Korea wearing 56. 58 I'm not sure about, but it matters not because she's getting a lot of help through these latter stages, and that is absolutely perfect for her.
Yeah, 57 and 58. She has two pacers there. That's great. You know, these guys have they typically go at least 40K for the women, which is it's a huge help. You know, to kind of block a little bit of the wind and just set that pace.
And this is where being in the lead, having those pacers to work with, is a totally different ball game than being in second place all by yourself, having to do all that work alone.
That's right. Typically the pacers will stay with the leaders, so if you fall off, it's your loss, you know, big time, because yeah, you're fighting everything by yourself, and you're looking at, you know, the leader run away from you with the help of with pacers, and it's a tough position to be in, but yeah, she looks absolutely great. I'm not sure exactly what pace she's on, but you know, if it's anything like the men's, maybe she's fighting for a course record as well.
Well, she looks really comfortable, doesn't she? Good gap behind her. Eric Gillis got home, of course. His time, not a Canadian record, but Gillis surely will be pretty happy with his day. We can find out now and have a quick chat with him.
Eric, that was an amazing race today. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling better and better as the time goes by. I was disappointed coming across the line and seeing my time, hoping for something quicker, but it was a good experience out there. I went through my first half the fastest I've ever done, best pacing job I've ever had through 30K. We're right on the Canadian record pace, and the second half was just tough. It motivates me to go out there and get stronger, to run faster the next time, and hopefully run you know, what I want to do in the future. But it was a great crowd out there. Really enjoyed today's race, and thank you, Toronto.
What are you going to do now that's over?
We have our second child due next month, so we're going to get ready for that, and yeah, I'm just going to put my feet up for a couple weeks, other than prepping for a new baby.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Again.
Thank you.
Thanks, sorry about that.
No problem.
Well, Eric looking pretty philosophical about that, I think, and clearly it could have gone a lot worse today, and he can move on from this, I suppose, after what, as you said, Reid, has been a difficult year. But here you can see Flomina Chayet looks like she's eased away from the pacemakers now as she approaches her last few 100 meters.
Yeah, Chayet has just turned onto Bay Street, so this is the final straight. It's a straight shot to the finish line. You can see it's slightly uphill, and yeah, the pacers typically just kind of don't do that last part to give the runners their glory and have their day in the sun.
There she is, top left of the screen, behind the motorbike. Flomina Chayet going to make it at least a Kenyan win the women's side, if not on the men's side today, where of course Darissa Chimsa was a very impressive winner of that men's title. We had unofficially his time at 2:07.06, and for Flomina Chayet here, this is going to be classy running as well. It's not going to be a course record, but it's going to be very much a world-class time. Last year, remember, the women's race was won by Mary Davies of New Zealand. That was a huge surprise in 2:28.57. She turned back the challenge of the Africans, but Chayet will take the title for Kenya today.
Yeah, Chayet looks like she might come under 2:25 here, which is a great run. Yeah, world-class time for sure. And yeah, if she can hustle this last few hundred meters, yeah, she can get under 2:25. I think it's going to be tough though. I think she'll just miss it.
Well, maybe the incentive is not there. She knows she's got the race won firmly, and the win is in the bag, and she's easing home here. Who knows how much pain she's suffering from. It has been a glorious day. This has been a world-class run, been very close to her personal best of 2:24.34. It's not going to be much outside that, so she's hit it right today. She's hit the nail on the head, and indeed knocked the opposition into the background as she comes home towards the finish. There's the assembled throng of photographers for Flomena Chayach, the 31-year-old Kenyan. So experienced, and she's used that experience today to win here in Toronto. 2:25.12 unofficially by Chayach. That is her second fastest time ever. And the Kenyan has performed supremely.
Well, the big question here, does a Canadian woman come in the next 3.5 minutes here?
Yeah, Michael, what news on the Canadian women?
At 35K, we got a split of 2:01.44 for Lenny Marchand and 2:01.58 for Krista Duchesne, which means that they were both on Canadian record pace, and Lenny Marchand was on a solid 2:27 pace, so she hadn't slipped very much in the second half of the race up until that point.
There's the second place female coming home, I think, and that looks like a safer to me. Meskarem a safer, tiny figure to the top left of picture behind the bike in the pink vest. Not far down. Remember Chayach's time unofficially 2:25.12. Very quick running once again here in Toronto this morning. She just has to negotiate this little left swing now. Does a safer. And second place will be hers. Second place prize money, of course, after $20,000 for the winner is $12,000, $8,000 to the third place athlete, Canadian dollars. And as she is roared home, is the second place performer in the elite women's race today. 2:26.42 unofficially. And in fact, it's Dalash who has come home to take that second place. Wow. That is some run. Sechal Dalasa of Ethiopia. And that is about 15 seconds outside her personal best. It's tantalizingly close to her fifth place time in Shanghai last December. That's her third marathon of the year, though. And that's a good run.
Up here.
This should be interesting to see. I don't know what the distance is she has left exactly. It's going to be pretty close.
Now that bike shouldn't really be in front of her. But yeah.
Lenny Marchand
here,
a big gap. Looking strong at the end. She looks like she's running with quite a bit of power.
She's going to set the Canadian record here.
She is moving nicely.
She's going to be about 2:28
She must be so excited
flat.
right now.
This is a big run for Lanny. Wow.
This is a huge redemption for her. She had such a tough time in Moscow. She wanted to finish. She did it in over 3 hours. It really hurt her, I think, emotionally at the time, but she decided to come back. She was a late addition. Only a week ago she said officially that she was going to run, and now she is going to break the Canadian record in under 2:28.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
59 unofficially there. Remind us how old that record is again, Michael, so I'd love to hear those figures.
28 years old. Lenny Marchand was 1 year old when that record was set in 1985. And here's Krista Duchesne here.
And she's a full-time attorney as well, you know, in Chattanooga. And Duchesne could be tantalizingly close to the old mark as well.
I think she'll be just under as well, yeah.
This is amazing. Both of these girls, they have such respect for each other. They push each other, and they have just reinvented Canadian women's marathoning.
Yeah, that's huge runs. This is a huge day for Canadian marathoning. Krista, of course, the marathon mom. She's up early in the morning doing all of her workouts and working super hard, and yeah, best of friends and best of competitors. Wow, great day.
I can tell you that they are genuinely really happy for each other right now. This is not just two competitors pretending.
They're leaning on each other.
Yeah. they might both collapse.
I was talking to Chrissy yesterday, and she was saying that there have been times when she's got up at 4 a.m. to go running because one of the kids is sick and she's going to have to stay home, and her husband Jonathan goes off to work. I mean, that's a delightful story. You know, fairy tale stuff.
Yes, and that's Sylvia Ruger. She's the former Canadian record holder. Congratulating the two girls who just broke her mark from back to 1985. She's putting a smile on. I'm not sure how happy she is, but I'm sure she is really happy for these girls. She's I've talked to Sylvia, and she's such an inspiration to everybody, and really, yeah, really great to see.
So, unofficially, Krista got under the old record by 5 seconds. It was 2:28.36. I got her at 2:28.31. And of course, Lanny is now the new Canadian record holder at 2:29 unofficially. Those times to be verified, but it looks like she might have squeezed under 2:28, Mike.
I think so, just by that 1 second, and that always feels good because now she can say, "I ran a 2:27 marathon." Doesn't matter if it's 2:27:59. You take that 2:27, and of course the Canadian record is even more exciting, being the fastest female marathoner in Canadian history.
That is the Canadian run of the day, without any doubt. It's Canadian distance running performance of the year.
I would say so. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Actually, of the decade.
Yes,
28
probably.
years.
Yeah.
Well, the leading Canadian woman today, Lanny Marchand, finished in third place, right behind her, inside the old record in 2:28:31 with Krista Duchesne. She's with Laura De Silva now.
Krista, that was such an exciting moment when you came across the finish line. What are you thinking right now?
You know, before the race, I said it'd be great if Lanny and I were 1-2. So here we are, and we're thrilled. You know, God's given me this gift, and I'm just so happy. I ran better than the records, and so did Lanny. So hey, we're all thrilled.
Yeah. What does it feel like to be in a position of power for women?
It's great. You know, for me, it's not about the fame or whatever. It's about being a good role model to other people, to moms, to young women. It's a great honor.
Yeah. Okay, well, it was really great to watch you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. To God be the glory.
Thanks.
Well, she said build-up since Moscow has gone very well under the guidance of Coach Rick Mannon, and I know the family are in town, the kids of 7, 5 and 2, and husband Jonathan, who all make so many sacrifices. It must be an incredible feeling.
And we're going to throw now to an interview with Yoshi Hosaka, the 64-year-old who is going after a 2:42 today.
Okay, my name is Ed Whitlock, and I'm 82 years old, and I'm going to be running the marathon on Sunday, hopefully.
日本から来た保坂義久と言います。マラソンの年代別世界記録を4つ持っています。
Well, I guess we can thank Alan Brooks for helping Yoshi to come over here and run this race. Alan Brooks has done a lot for older runners and promoting them, both for myself for the past few years and for Folger Singh. And it's always nice to meet other older runners and talk to them. I've enjoyed my career so far, and I hope I can continue for a while longer. And you know, it all depends on the lap of the gods. One never knows what's going to happen next, and I hope that Yoshi will have a long and successful future career, building on his fabulous times that he's already done.
トロントに来てエドさんに会ってマラソンのED タワーそういう感じでマラソンのトロントの CM タワーと同じ非常に高い人だと自分は思っています。エドさんに会うまではいろいろ考えて質問事項をたくさん考えていたんですけど会ってみて生き神様みたいな存在でお願いができても質問するような感じがしなくなっちゃって今現在そばにいるだけでもう十分自分が83歳になった時にこういう感じでいられるようにってもうそれだけでもう言葉は全然いらないと自分で実感しています。今回の大会は来る前にエドさんは世界記録をきっと出すと思うから自分も出したいなと思って練習は一生懸命でやってきたんですけどできれば世界記録をエドさんと一緒に出してみたいなとは思っています。で将来にわたっては世界記録を年代の世界記録を毎年出していくことを目標に これから先やっていきたくて、エドさんの記録に近づけるように毎日毎日を節制してやっていきたいと思っています。エドさんが日本の大会に来て走ってもらえるようなことありますか？
Ed, I'd really like to know if you'd like to come to Japan and run a race sometime.
How about a definite maybe?
Well, here is Osaka-san, the man we've just heard talking to Ed Whitlock. He described Ed Whitlock as like the CN Tower, Michael, but he's not running too badly himself here today. He's a tower of strength.
He looks pretty good. He looks, you know, I mean, he's looking like he's working pretty hard right now. But I mean, like, look, he's 64 years old. The guy looks like he's 21, you know, and he's almost to the end of his race. He should be pretty happy with this one. We're sitting at around 243 right now, and he was saying he wanted to get into the 242s because I believe that is the record for his age. A tough record. 242 for a 64-year-old is unbelievable. And but he does 5 marathons a year, he told me, and he keys up for one a year. This is the one he keyed up for. It's 5 a year is tough at that age. And he's looking good. I think he's going to be happy with today. I think he's probably just happy having met Ed Whitlock. I mean, he's like, it's such an idol and an inspiration to Osaka-san. Ed Whitlock is. I really enjoyed talking to two of them and to Brett Larner doing the translation. And you know, it was funny at one point. Osaka turned over and took the interview and kind of made it the question, made him was asking the questions. It was really quite something.
Well, he looks like I mean, he's got the muscles and the thighs and the upper body of a 35-year-old. I mean, he's 64. It's absolutely staggering. I want to know what he has for breakfast, this guy. Because Osaka's son, he might have missed that world record he was after, but he's still moving incredibly well.
Well, you know, he actually owns a fruit juice company, I believe, in Japan. I read that somewhere. So that would explain the fitness, perhaps, or the health.
I guess it would.
Yeah.
Well, talking of fitness, talking of health, one of the great stars of the Canadian year of athletics, I guess, today, Lanny Marchand, the 29-year-old, breaking a 28-year-old Canadian record. An astonishing run from Lanny. She is now with Laura at the finish line.
Lanny, that was an unbelievable moment. We're so proud of you. A new record. What does it feel like? It's amazing. I'm still in pretty big shock right now. I mean, you know the splits and you're paying attention when the race is going on, but you're kind of numb to it all because you're moving your body, you're focusing, you're grabbing your bottle. So coming across that last 200 meters where like I knew I had it, I'm still on that high right now. I'm just buzzing. It's great. How are you going to celebrate? My family's here. My mom came and 2 of my sisters, so I'll go and celebrate with them for a little bit and then just kind of absorb it in and take in the crowds and everybody. It's just, it'll just be great. I'm kind of dumb right now. I can't put a sentence together because I think I'm just in a little bit of shock. Hey, that's cool. We don't need to. You just broke a record. Congratulations. Thank you.
Smiles all the way there for Lanny Marchand after that fabulous Canadian record. On a pretty big payday too. And for Osaka's son, well, maybe a shade of disappointment with this run here today, Michael, but I'll tell you what, he is still moving well, and you know, you can't need to ask any more than that. People are not machines. I think it's very easy to forget that these are human beings out there. You know, they're mortals, and this guy's a 64-year-old mortal.
I was going to say, especially for a 64-year-old. I think a veteran like Osaka, at this point, he's only actually been running for about 25 years, but he's been running since he was about 40 years old when he picked up running. But I think for a guy like him who's run almost, I think, 100 marathons at this point, he understands that you have to take it in stride and you have to, you know, take the positives from the race. There are always positives. There's always going to be negatives. Even in a fantastic race like Lanny Marchand had, for example, I'm sure she will find a couple of negatives here and there, a couple of points where she felt like, you know, she found the pace hard or was struggling or what have you. But in this case, you know, Osaka, he'll take the experience of coming to Toronto, of running on this course, of what was otherwise a really nice day for racing, and also, of course, meeting Ed Whitlock. He said he was going to spend a lot of time asking Ed a lot of questions about how he can become the next great 80 plus, 70 plus runner, and how he's going to take that and bring that back to Japan.
Well, I don't know. It's you can copy somebody, you can do everything they do, but actually sometimes it comes down to strength of will, or maybe a little bit of talent thrown as well. Of course, Ed, somewhere back there on the road behind Hosaka-san, and he said to me the last couple of days that he has had a cold for much of the last week, so he could be struggling. It could be a tough day at the office for Ed Whitlock as well. Certainly looks a tough day at the office for Hosaka-san. Those legs look to be buckling to me, but I think it might just be his running style, but there's certainly plenty of flailing going on with the arms there, but he's moving well. Actually, if you pick a point on the road and see how quickly he's covering the ground, he's still moving really well, still very determined to get to that finish line as quickly as he can.
He's just coming up Bay Street here. He's almost done. He is moving quite quickly. He's put a little bit of distance on the guy in the yellow that you can see behind him there. So he is powering to the finish. He does have a strong finishing kick here. You know, as I said earlier, he does all that speed work. And you have to ask, and he admitted this himself, that, you know, at a certain point he's going to have to transition from doing all that speed work. He does 2 speed workouts a day every day of his life.
It's hard to believe.
It's really, you know, unbelievable. I mean, I am half that guy's age, and I only do 1 speed work a week. So,
I was reading some more stuff last night, and I think that most of the top Kenyans do 2 interval sessions a week, 2 tough sessions a week. The rest of it is about 120 miles, 130 miles of steady running, and they'll do a couple of hard sessions. It might be 8 times a mile or 12 times 1,000 meters on a track or something like that. But every day doing workouts, twice a day doing workouts, it's eccentric to the extreme.
I think it probably helped him get to the place where he's at today in the beginning, and he's probably noticing now that it's eating away a little bit at him. He said so in the interview that I did with him and Ed Whitlock, that, you know, he needs to figure out a new way to approach this sport as he gets older, as he crosses 65 and into 70, of course. And I think that was this was a bit of a fact-finding mission for him to come here to Canada and speak with Ed and perhaps run a little bit with Ed over the last couple of days. It's actually one of my club mates, John, that's behind him there, fighting to the finish, trying to catch the 64. John's 40 actually, so, you know, he's no spring chicken himself either, but you can still run very fast at 40. As you know, you can still do quite well. And here he comes, Yoshi Osaka, towards the finish line. Last 50 meters or so. He's going to maybe get in under 250. It's going to be, oh no, he just missed it. He missed it by about 30, 40 seconds here.
Well, Yoshihisa-san, or Yoshihisa Osaka of Japan, and the 64-year-old comes home just being outsprinted by Michael's teammate, 250, just outside 250, his time there. A fabulous run for the man who does 30 kilometers a day. That's around, what, 18 miles? Something like that. And he's still smiling, even though many of those last few kilometers were in glorious isolation, the glorious isolation of a distance runner that so many have to get used to. But not the day at the office he wanted, and it just shows that there are no easy world records, Michael.
No, no, there are not, especially as you get older. It's surprising the number of really spectacular times at that age that have been put down. And I think actually with guys like Haile Gebrselassie, who's now a Masters runner, I think things are going to change. And I think with this sport growing to the degree that it has over the last 10 years, and bringing in so many talented older runners like Yoshi Hosaka, like an Ed Whitlock, coming back to the sport after, you know, 40 years away from the sport, that I think you're going to see faster and faster times as we get older.
Well, the athletes are still pouring in their thousands, of course, at this time for the amongst the half marathon runners to the right of picture. The marathon runners will be coming through soon. The atmosphere on the course is still absolutely fantastic here in Toronto today. And of course, Melissa is out on the route.
Hey, Tim, Mike, the energy energy is electrifying out here. I'm in the beaches at about the 29-kilometer mark, and to my left, to my right, I have a sea of runners. It is a sight to behold. You know, we have so many heroes out here today. We've got superheroes. I've seen everything from Superman to Batman and Robin, and you name it, costumes galore, and you don't have to be in a costume to be a superhero out here today. We have so many people running for charities and just running to their heart's content. And not only the runners are the heroes today, but also the charities and our cheerers. With me, I have Nolly. Nolly, you are the president of the Toronto Beaches Lions Club, are you not?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming down here today. And you have quite the cheering station, do you not?
Yes. We consider it a success. The neighborhood is great for this kind of. You can see that people are out everywhere. We can get certain things going, but this is just natural in this neighborhood. So.
It is, and it's just beautiful to see the excitement, not only just how invigorated the runners become as they're coming by, listening to the musicians that you've got in the background. You know, you brought even your boat here with you, haven't you?
Yeah. Yes, and we've even got high schools represented at the other end with the band and the cheerleaders. So we really hope to make it a warm welcome and a good push for them to finish the race.
And you've got everything. You really do have it covered, from the cheerleaders to the music to even you've got clowns, you've got people cheering galore, you name it. You're pretty much doing it all here, aren't you, today?
Yeah, we tried, and it's a great effort on everyone's part, I must say. And this neighborhood, as I said, is they help. They love this kind of thing. So.
What do you think it is about the beaches that makes it so special? You know, as we've been traveling around, there are certain quiet spots on the route, and then as you said, we were talking off camera, as the runners are coming into the city, into the outlets, like into the beaches, it's just, again, it awakens, does it?
Yes, it does, and I think it's because people do outdoor activities here. And it's a people neighborhood. It's small, so it's friendly. When there is a group, it's warm. And I think that's the success that this neighborhood brings. So I'm really proud of it. I think it's great.
You know, we were chatting earlier that you couldn't believe how many runners are actually coming through here today.
Wow, I am impressed. You said something like 25,000 runners?
25,000?
That's a lot of heart from a lot of people, because they're looking, they're bouncy, they're happy, they're high-fiving us, and it's amazing.
Still at 29 kilometers, so we've reached past the halfway point. We are getting to the stretch, to the finish line. I know some people have already made it to the finish line, and you know, if you're watching live from home, definitely get onto Twitter, hashtag STWM, of course, the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. Get on Twitter, you're gonna see so many pictures, so many tweets galore. You know, what more can we say? It is a party out here today, isn't it?
Let's be loud.
Let's be loud. We are definitely proud to be down here at the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. So much action, so much, of course, to see and do with the runners, the entertainment, the cheering stations. Get out there and cheer for your favorite charities and your teams and the individuals as well. I'm going to throw it back to you in the studio. You know, we are making dreams come true out here today.
Thanks, Melissa. I think Melissa Schenk is still a frustrated marathon runner myself. I think she needs to put down the stuff and get out there and run. Michael, changing the subject slightly after hearing from Melissa just then, we're just hearing from that Ed Whitlock is out there and he's just passed 30K. We're trying to find him with one of our cameras to see how he's looking. But he did tell me a couple of days ago that he's had a cold for the last week, and maybe there's a message there.
Yeah, he said he's been battling this cold that just wouldn't go away. I think it may be even more than a week now. And you know, it just goes to show how competitive the guy is. We all know that if you've got a head cold, especially if it's in your chest, you don't typically run, especially not a marathon. But he's a really competitive guy. In his 80s, doesn't matter, goes out there. He is able to adjust. I know that he will be disappointed because he is driven by those records. But he does, you know, he will be a little bit disappointed, but at the same time, I think he can put it into perspective and realize that he gave it his best today under tough circumstances for him.
Okay, well, Ed Whitlock, of course, is the next man we're really focusing upon. He's out there, he's 82, maybe 83 years old, according to Hosaka's son, and we can find out a little bit more about Ed now.
My name's Wade Beatty, and I'm Director of Autism Dog Services, and I'm happy to say that I'm running the marathon this year. It's turned out to be our key event for the year. We've raised over $50,000. It's just been so successful for us. Well, when Sue McClellan contacted me interested in a service dog for their son Joel, I made arrangements to come to the house and meet the family and meet Joel.
When I came home with Bruno, Joel was here, and he kept asking when he was going back. And finally I said, Bruno's staying here, like he's going to live here.
What do you think of Bruno?
I like him.
You like him? You know, the number one reason for this dog to come into our life is, you know, to be his buddy day in and day out. When he wakes up, he's usually there licking his face, and when he goes to bed at night, first thing he says is, "Where's my buddy Bruno?" So neighborhood kids aren't knocking on their door every afternoon to throw a football or go play baseball or play road hockey.
We were trying to think of a way to raise money for Autism Dog Services that would involve a walk or run that supported so many charities. And we decided, you know, a pamphlet would be a nice idea, because if we can just get him to say a few words about what he's doing.
What did you say? What was the brochure all about?
Scotiabank walk.
In support of?
Autism Dog Services.
That's right.
We were so overwhelmed with the Scotiabank Marathon.
It was just cool to just be in that great city and look around and see all these people. And then the enthusiasm along the route with the people cheering and supporting.
Well, I think because there's so many charities involved in the marathon, it speaks for itself. And I think most charities see the value and the awareness and the possible fundraising. It's just a fantastic event.
Well, clearly that wasn't Ed Whitlock. That was a piece on autism dogs, just one of the 186 charities that benefit from the races today, the participants. And when you think about, without this race, Michael, none of those charities would be making those hundreds of thousands of dollars, those millions of dollars, $4 million plus being raised from today's race. And I still think it's a growing trend here in North America to some extent, in Europe, certainly in the UK. You know, the London Marathon, I think, is the world's biggest one-day fundraising sports event every year. It raises tens of millions of pounds, and it has raised, I think it went through £500 million last year. But it's a different psyche, and it's taken many, many years to get to that stage. But I truly think that in 10 years' time, this race will be raising several times $4 million. Anyway, the average guy is out there somewhere. We try to find them, and we catch one or two of them on tape as well, and we can actually go now to a little item we've got called the Everyday Runner. I used to be one. Now I'm certainly about every third day runner, I think. But let's have a look at the Everyday Runner here in Toronto.
I'm Elaine Fitzgeorge. I am a mom, I am a wife, and I work, and I volunteer. Definitely for me, it took something substantial, like realizing my health wasn't in the best kind of shape that it could have been at my age. I wasn't getting off the couch. I wasn't getting off of the computer and socializing. Back then I was called cute. Back then I was roly-poly, and I thought really nothing of it until suddenly people started to acknowledge that I was having troubles with the food I was eating, and I'm still the same girl, I'm just older. I want to succeed, and I think that's the best revenge from all the years of pain that I went through. And I think that I only have myself to blame if I don't do something about it. I've had to refocus on myself so that my kids can see that I'm also focused on myself.
Being an active mom and keeping my kids included in things is quite the experience. I really get to learn what kind of kids they are, and it makes me happy to see them with a little bead of sweat on their forehead.
Yeah, I like being active sometimes, and I think I'll make a promise to do that more often.
One person who's definitely been very important to me in this whole process is my coach, Mike.
Just a few short months ago, Elaine ran her first race, which was the Classic Mile, and here she is getting ready for the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon. So through Elaine's journey to become more fit and more healthy, she's lost over 50 pounds, and running's been a big part of that.
Now that I've made these big changes in my life, I feel that the energy I have is completely increased, and the purpose in my life has completely changed in such a positive way. A couple of months ago, I wasn't even dreaming of running my very first marathon, but through my hard work with the community and my support systems, I know I can do it. Crossing that finish line is monumental for me, especially, but even more so is the medal that I receive after. And I get to hang it on my wall. And every day when I wake up and I look at that medal, I'm going to say, I can do anything I set my mind to.
Oh, that coffee looked good at the beginning of that piece. I could almost smell that coffee. Now, we found Ed Whitlock out there. I bet he'd like a drink. Certainly he's having a tough day at the office, Michael.
I think he's getting the opportunity, and he just passed it up for the drink. So maybe he's having a slightly better day than we thought. You know, the time he's got less than, I'd say he's got about 5K to go, and he's not looking too bad. He'll probably finish somewhere in the 3:30s if he can hang on to this pace. He's going through that aforementioned Gordian knot spot. It's new to the race this year. It's a twisty component. You can lose quite a bit of time here if you're not careful. You got to cut the turns well. There's a bit of a climb here. You can see he's going up, which must be hard. Right now, you can see that fellow there. His form was starting to fall apart quite a bit at this stage in the race. It's really all about efficiencies, and that's the one thing. That's one thing that's really what makes Ed Whitlock such a special runner is he has that really great form, and I think that's what allows him to run so well without injury as an older person.
He has had the most fascinating life too, has Ed Whitlock. He was born in London. He lived in Surbiton, a suburb of South London in the UK, only about 40 miles from where I live right now. He ran for the Walton Club in South London, and then he did a bit of running at school. Did a mining course at Imperial College in the centre of London. Then came out to Canada as just a young lad, just before national service grabbed him, and had a career in the mines for many, many years. He's got 2 sons. Has had a very, very good life here in Canada. It's kind of the dream, I guess, of guys back then in the days when he was born, many, many years ago. But he's made the most of it, hasn't he? He's had a life and a half as Ed Whitlock.
Well, he's discovered this whole new form of celebrity that's popped up in our culture with an aging population, now that we can live healthier, better lives much later, into our 80s and even into our 90s. I mean, I think Ed Whitlock's probably going to live forever. It seems like it, at least. I wouldn't be surprised if the guy, lives to be well over 100 years old and is still running. He looks like a better runner than me, and he's, nearly triple my age. So,
you say he's going to live forever. There's a good chance. He was born in 1931. He came to Canada in 1952 at the age of 21. And here he is, how many years later? 61 years later, still running strong. Probably a lot fitter now than he was at the age of 21.
He's about the same age as Roger Bannister as well, if I'm not mistaken. And you were telling me the other night that you actually spoke to Roger not long ago for your event in Brighton in England, and that Roger is in very different shape right now. Maybe ran a little harder, a little longer in his 20s and paid the price for it.
Didn't he just? Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, Bannister, of course, the first man to break 4 minutes for the mile back in 1954, is a living legend. I asked him if he'd be the starter for my marathon back in the UK, and he said, look, I'd love to be, but I'm 82, I'm very old, I don't move very well these days. And you see Ed Whitlock moving there at 82, moving pretty well, and you think that somebody's done something wrong. But the funny thing was I sent Roger a second letter and said, look, I understand that, but we can have a limo pick you up from your front door in Oxford, drive you down to Brighton in a couple of hours, just fire the gun, smile at a couple of people, and you can be back home for lunch in Oxford. And he rang me up and said, look, I really appreciate it, but I can't make it. And then he sent a letter through, which I've now got, of course, framed back at home, signed by Roger Bannister, saying, Tim, would love to come. Absolutely admire your persistence, but I'm not coming. I can hardly walk these days. Well, Ed Whitlock won't be writing that sort of letter for another 20 years.
Yeah, I don't think so. Well, I guess Bannister left it all out on the course 50 plus years ago.
Yeah, some character. Here is Ed now, still moving along. He's got a nice, steady rhythm. The stride length isn't as long as it was when we last saw him properly, which was, an hour and a half ago, I guess. But I think we can forgive him that. Ed Whitlock here has got many thousands of people behind him in this marathon, that's for sure. And his day is, as you said a little while ago, Michael, probably about 4 meters from its end as a runner.
Yeah,
4 kilometers.
4 kilometers. Yeah, 4 meters. He wishes. You know, I think Ed's so competitive that I think he's seeing the situation right now. He's thinking, you know, just get ahead of the next person in front of me. You know, use that motivation to pass people, to stay competitive, to keep moving, to run the best you can towards the end. He'll still finish with a totally, you know, desirable time by most people's standards. I mean, you look at the people that are on there in the course, the people that are coming in the opposite direction that still have quite a bit of work to do. That look, you know, that look to be in their 20s. They're young, they're fit, and they're nowhere near as fast as Ed Whitlock is in his 80s.
It's pretty frightening, isn't it, how well he runs? And he has got that, you look at his stride, it's short, it's a pitter-patter stride, he's slightly knock-kneed, but he's just got this metronomic rhythm to his running, where the arms are swinging across the body. He's a determined gentleman, is probably one way we could describe him.
It's amazing that he's not taking fluids here. I guess he's old school, maybe he takes them every 5K or so. Or maybe he's having a bit of a stomach issue today, and that could explain a little bit of the slowdown. The cold, as you said before, the cold that he's been nursing for the last week or two is maybe not agreeing with him in terms of fluid intake, which will factor in a huge way in a marathon. You have to take those fluids, and you have to try to get in those carbohydrates as much as you can in order to set yourself up for a successful last 10 or 12K. I mean, I always think to myself, just get to that 30K mark and then hold on for 2 more K, and then if you get to 32K and you still feel okay, last 10K is a very digestible distance. So
yeah.
And Ed's less than that now. He's way less than that. He's less than that 5K to go. He just needs to tough this out.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, there's a few people running past him, but he's passing people as well. And I just think it's almost comical. And you've got this 82-year-old gentleman. Here he is. He's hitting an upslope now, and he's leaning into it. But he's actually passing people who are sort of, they look about 28, 30, 35, you know, and they're having a tough time. But here we go.
There's a guy walking.
Ed's just keeping going. Everybody else is slowing down, stopping, walking, and then picking it up again. He just keeps chugging away, knocking off the kilometers. It's really impressive.
And it looks like they're going up a little bit of that uphill here, which, you know, at that stage in the race is so tough. And, you know, for Ed, he's just got to be thinking to himself, just keep this stride going, shorten it up a little bit. You know, it can almost slip to a walk, a fast walk at certain points, but he's still moving his legs and has a good pace going. You know, the guy to the right of him here is, you know, might be about 40 years old, and Ed just crushed him there. So, you know, I bet you Ed will probably put a minute on him.
Up until just then.
He's like, wait a minute, who the heck is this guy here who's passing me?
I
the
know
long
the
white hair. I mean, he probably knows who he is. Ed's such a famous person on the Canadian running scene.
I've had some tough times in my running the last few years where I'm just not very fit. And sometimes you go out for a run. I've been going out for a run, and you're jogging along the seafront in my hometown, and there's somebody in front of me, and I think, they're going slowly. And then I think, but I'm not catching them. And it all hits home. It's like a slap in the face. Oh my goodness, I am moving at that speed. But hey, they're all out there. They're doing it. You know, at least it's much better to be out there and actually participating than spectating. If you can't participate, spectate, but do one of the two.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, I think that the bucket list, the marathon as the bucket list is still alive and well in this event. You can see how many people come out to this event, how many people are sticking their toe into the marathon waters today with the half marathon, which is such a huge distance here in Toronto and around the world, and how many people will try the full marathon when they see someone like Ed Whitlock passing them in the last 5K of the race. You know, people half his age. And you have to think to yourself, oh man, you know, like this is a tough distance, and it really requires a tough mind and a tough body.
Talking of a tough mind, I mean, going back to his training regime of running around a 400-meter circuit in a cemetery, lap after lap, every day. And I was asking him about that, and he said, well, do you know what? He said it's kind of convenient because it's 200 yards from their house, and also in the winter it gets kind of icy and slippery, he said, and I get to know where the icy patches are, and I know to run around them. I mean, I should think he could do it with his eyes closed, but he is a tough old fella, and, you know, it doesn't matter how many people like you or I tell him, Ed, get out in the woods, get out in the trails, enjoy the beautiful countryside, smell the fresh air. It doesn't matter how many people tell him that, he's not going to change now.
No, he famously says that he doesn't really like the training very much. He's more of a racer. He enjoys the racing, which is a common sentiment amongst some of the world-class elites. Jerome Drayton famously said that he hated training, even though he ran 300 and 330K a week sometimes, just to stay world-class. And Ed's much the same way, you know. Probably doesn't love a lot of those training days, and I guess he just picks something that's really familiar, really safe. You know, you have to be concerned about injury, and you're at that age, and you have to put yourself in a position where you're comfortable with grinding it out. And he says he does, I think, 3 hours of running every single day. So,
it's astonishing. I mean, apart from anything else, that does burn a lot of calories. So he's got to have a pretty substantial food consumption. And yet, you look at him, there's not a pick on him.
I can imagine he probably eats, 2,500 calories a day, if not more.
If he lay down, the vultures would turn their noses up at him.
Well,
you'd struggle to get a small steak off it. He's tiny. There's nothing on him.
Then that's what makes him a good runner. You know, I mean, there is that fine line where you can slip into being underweight, and Ed's he's just above that line, and he's lean and he's fast still.
Yeah. No, he's leaning into these last few miles now, bravely determined to get home. Is Ed, and I know they'll get a huge reception when he comes home. They're doing a great job at the finish line with a PA welcoming everybody home, and who knows what special achievements are going on from one individual to the next in regards to having finished their half marathon, having finished their marathon. Well, listen, Michael, it's been a good day. The city is out there still, bathed in glorious sunshine. Melissa is out there. And she is enjoying, apparently, just one of the city zones that the course passes through. She's in Greektown. So we can take a look at Melissa now.
Hello, gentlemen. We have reached the 35K mark, and if you can see by the flag in behind me, we are in Greektown. Unbelievable excitement. You know, at 35K, this is sometimes what could be the breaking part for some of the runners here today, and I think it's the cheering stations and the music here in Greektown that's keeping them alive and well. I want to introduce you to one of our grand cheers here, Helen, and you even have brought your little prince with you, haven't you?
Yes, I have. He decided to come and support the runners and support the Greek community and their cheering station, which we've been doing for the past 3-4 years.
3 to 4 years, and I love it. You got your great shirt, proud to be Greek, and even Prince. You've got Prince all done up in his little outfit. Yes, in the Greek flag. Beautiful. Did you have to have that special made?
No. No, we just took one off the thing and we just put it on him. No.
So we were chatting earlier, and you said you had a friend out here running, and can you tell me that story again?
Yeah, my friend Stephanie is a fitness freak, and she decided to run her first marathon last year, and she was building, trying to get support. We come down here every year, and she said that when she saw me, when she was coming up, I just so happy to see her. I started screaming her name and everything, and when we were talking later on, she goes, Helen, she said, you got me to the finish point. She goes, just the music and the spirit of the cheering station and just seeing you there just got me to the end. I was so happy. She brought tears to my eyes. I was like, oh my God, really? Seriously? Yeah, she was, it was just a very inspirational, emotional moment when I saw her. She was so tired. You could see it in her face. And then as soon as she saw me, she just lit up and just burst into the speed sort of thing. It was great. It was really, really good.
And you can really feel the intensity and the emotion from not only the cheerers, but also the runners. I mean, it's a very special, powerful day. What brings you back year after year to cheer the runners on?
The sense of community, to tell you the truth, watching the kids get all together and with their enthusiasm to support these runners that are really, really at a really tough point at their, right now. And just the sense of community. I love it. The energy, it's just fantastic. I don't know, it just brings this excitement, a tickle in your chest. I don't know. I can't put it into words. It's just fantastic.
I know exactly what you mean. And guys, back at the studio, you know, it's really hard to put it into words, as Helen said. You can feel the emotion in your heart. You can feel the intensity. And as we get closer and closer towards the finish line, I can't wait. I want to run with them because it just gets you so very excited.
Very, very excited. And I can't even imagine running as far as they do. And some of them just do it just for the pleasure. And really, I admire them, and they're like heroes to me. They're just, you know, that willpower to get to the end, that strength. That I don't know where they find it. Good for them, like really, good for them. I saw Ed, the oldest marathoner, go by.
Ed Whitlock.
Yes, I've seen him for the past 4 years since I've been here. Every year I see him running, and I'm thinking, oh my God, where does he get that energy, that strength to do it every year? Good for him.
Digging deep today, and today it really is all about inspiration. So we thank our cheerleaders and our cheerers like Helen and Prince that came out to cheer on the runners. And you know what, at the 35K mark, we are heading on forward down to 42. We're almost there. And it is the Greek town that is keeping these runners going. Back to you, Mike and Tim in the studio.
Thanks, Melissa. Well, it couldn't be anywhere but Greek town, could it? If you know your flags, you'll have recognised that flag, and that's the biggest Greek flag I think I've ever seen, about a 60-yard long Greek flag. Very impressive. Mike, we're going to be with everybody for a little while yet, but just let's take a look back at some of the aspects of the day so far. It's been a very special day for marathon running here in Canada, particularly on the women's side, of course. What does it mean? I mean, the sport's been projected, I guess, onto a new level now.
I think this is going to be known as the day that changed everything. Lenny Marchand running that 2:27, just squeaking under 2:28, which is even greater than expected. I mean, I was thinking you know, it would be really exciting if they broke that record by 1 or 2 seconds. And Krista broke that record by a handful of seconds, but Lenny just smashed that record. And you have to be thinking to yourself, okay, now we've got a couple of girls that are world class, that can run world class times. Let's see how well they can do.
And there was some bad news for you personally, because Tasha Wodak, who ran very well, we got her at about 2:35.15 in her debut marathon. There was a little side bet going on, I understand. Mike, do you want to confess anything about that?
Well, Natasha and I have become very good friends over the course of this last year, and we had a bet going on because it was her first marathon. I said that whoever has the faster marathon time, I ran in Chicago last week, gets free drinks on marathon night tonight from the other. So I only ran a 2:38 in Chicago last week, so I guess the drinks are on me tonight.
So you'll be avoiding her this afternoon, this evening, basically?
I hope to sneak back to my house and, yeah, because I know she likes her glasses of white wine, so.
Hey, every single one of these marathon runners has earned a glass of wine or a smallish beer, of course. Do you know even that some other marathons now actually give beer out at the finish line? My race, we have a beer sponsor. Chicago, I think they give out a beer to every finisher.
You know, a few years ago I ran Chicago and I completely blew up. I walked a third of the course and I crossed the finish line. It was a really hot day. It was 2010. I wanted nothing more than to drink that free beer they have right at the finish line, and I couldn't do it. I was just so sick to my stomach, mentally and physically. This year when I crossed the finish line, they had that same beer there. I don't know what kind of, I think it's a Chicago brand beer. It's a microbrew, and it was extraordinary thing to drink at the finish line. I think I had 3.
It does seem insane, but actually, yeah, you know, sometimes it's the desire to celebrate takes over common sense, I think is probably the way to describe it. There is Ed
Yes.
now, still chugging along, wearing that Ranelagh vest. Now that's a South London running club, a Southwest London running club that is very, very famous, been around for many, many decades. Certainly Hugh Jones, who was a London Marathon winner back in, I think, 1982. I think he won the second London Marathon. Good friend of mine. He's now one of the great course measurers around the world. He goes all over the world with his bicycle, measuring courses to get them right to the nearest inch. He's a Ranelagh club member. It's really good to see Ed wearing it, actually.
Yeah, Ed alternates back and forth between the old club singlet and he's got a Milton singlet as well that he sports. He lives in the town of Milton, which is just a little bit west of Toronto. It's almost a suburb of Toronto at this point, with the growth of the Greater Toronto area. So he goes back and forth.
Talking about Ranelagh Harriers, and the Harriers, of course, is a term that sort of originated from cross-country running. What's the state of cross-country here in Canada? Because I've got to attend a seminar in December in Belgrade, I think, which is looking at the issues that are facing cross-country now, the challenges it faces. The World Cross-Country Championships is every 2 years now. It used to be annual. The Africans slaughtered everybody else at the championships, which has unfortunately, reduced its popularity amongst the sort of floating voter audience on TV and amongst the media generally. How is cross-country here in Canada? Is it in a good state?
On a recreational level, it's on a fantastic state. It's in a fantastic state on a high school level and even a college level. The CIS, the Canadian Inter-University competitions are pretty solid. They produce some interesting runners. We've got, of course, Cam Levins, who was the cross-country champion last December in Vancouver, who's become a certain type of running celebrity because of the amount of mega miles he was doing, and now he joined Alberto Salazar's group and is training with Mo Farah and Galen Rupp out west. So it's in a good place. A lot of the guys and girls that ran here today ran cross country. Natasha Wodak ran cross country.
But actually, a couple of the girls I was talking to, going to the expo on Friday, said that they get selected for the Canadian team to go to the World Cross Country Championships and then have to pay their own way to represent Canada. I was flabbergasted. I could not believe it.
Well, I mean, and it depends on the event, but from my understanding, they do have to foot the bill sometimes, and I think that's too bad. I think that Athletics Canada could be doing a better job helping Canadian athletes. I know getting carded, getting that $1,500 a month that the top elite athletes get from Athletics Canada is very difficult, and I understand the need to set the bar high to motivate people, but when you set it too high and it seems like it's unattainable, it becomes unattainable. You have to create these benchmarks and these steps in the ladder, or these steps in the to climb up to that A standard, to that international quality standard. And I think that going to Worlds, for example, they perhaps maybe could use a little bit more help with that. And these meets in Jamaica last year, the NACAC North American and the Americas meet, they could use a little bit more help with that. But
I guess it comes down to the resources, Mike. I mean, money doesn't grow on trees. I doubt if the Canadian Federation is sitting on a monstrous pot of money that they just sit there counting year after year. They're probably trying to eke it out as best they can.
I'm sure Athletics Canada are listening to this right now and saying, like, what the heck are you talking about? We don't have any extra money to throw around. And they have to figure out, they're figuring out ways to use the limited resources that they have. But we can't have our cake and eat it too. We can't say, oh, why don't we have world-class athletes? Why don't we have, African-beating world-class long-distance runners, and then be like, well, at the same time, we don't really want to pay our athletes or help our athletes financially. So I think there are a lot of wrinkles that need to be ironed out. I think that the higher profile these athletes get at these events, and they become stars in Canada, and recognizable figures like Lanny Marchand, who hopefully will become a really recognizable star in the Canadian running scene and in the Canadian sports scene. Hopefully that will help bring this sport up, because this is a mainstream sport. We act like it's a niche sport, but it's a mainstream sport, and we need to start acting that way overall in every capacity of the sport.
Well, 3 hours 36 on the clock now on the finish line, as you can see, and Ed Whitlock heading for that line, heading for that gantry now. It'll be a very welcome sight for him, I'm sure. Ed here at the age of 82 has had a tough day. I think he's run a little bit slower than he was hoping, but is nonetheless still moving along. There's been absolutely no discernible change to his rhythm, to his speed, his leg turnover in this last half hour or so, where we've seen quite a lot of him. And Ed Whitlock will get one of the biggest cheers of the day. There's no doubt about that, when he turns into Bay Street and gets that finish line in view. In fact, it's great to see so many athletes, as they go past him or as he's passing them, cheering him on. They recognise him. He's quite a character, I guess. If you read your running magazines and you follow the sport of running, which many of these athletes out there today will do, then they will certainly recognise Ed Whitlock. What was interesting, that last time we got a shot of the finishing straight, is that the numbers on to the right of the picture, the half marathon finish chute and the marathon finish chute to the left, have adjusted dramatically, and now it's the marathon finish that's beginning to get pretty crowded and well populated, and the half marathon finish, as you would expect, because the runners have been out there now for, gosh, some 3.5 hours and more. You would expect the half marathon runners to have mostly finished.
Just want to point out, give a little shout out to Marilyn Arsenault, who broke the women's Canadian age 45 record with a 2:40.20. That's very impressive. A lot of impressive age group performances out there today.
Well, here he is on Bay Street, Ed Whitlock, and the man who will have his two sons watching with enormous pride, I'm sure, easing his way home. Now, allowing himself the luxury of looking up and viewing the finish line. For the last 3 hours, it seems, he's had his eyes focused just down on the road, a couple of yards ahead of his stride. But Ed Whitlock, even he must be getting a little bit excited to see that line coming ahead. He doesn't look like a man whose feathers are ruffled easily, but this has been a good day in very good conditions for distance running for most people, but not a particularly good day for Ed, and I'm sure he'll be glad to come home and get that race behind him. Still nice to see this congratulations going on regularly. I wonder if he's cold. I'm still
saw the
convinced.
guy running with the shirt off next to him there.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, I'm convinced that they've put a refrigerator underneath our cabin here near the finish line to just to have a laugh at our expense, because it seems colder in here than outside, I'm sure. Steady Eddie.
I wonder if he's heard that one before.
How many thousand times?
Yeah.
Gotta be hurting. He really has. But boy,
I'm just impressed. I'm impressed that he isn't. He doesn't seem to ever walk in a race. It must be so tempting, especially when you're not having the best day, and you know when you're motivated to run something like a record or a personal best time, and once that goes out the window and it really goes south, it's so hard to keep going, especially in this distance, especially in that last 7 or 8K. It's just such a grind, and it's really impressive that he's able to keep moving, and he's kept this same stride going for the last number of minutes now, and it's not as fast, I'm sure, as he'd like to be running, but it's still a nice steady stride. It's bringing him home to the finish line here. He's just a couple 100 feet away.
Well, do you know what? This is the sort of performance, because from an 82-year-old who's used to having some pretty big successes and set many world records over the years, this is not one of those golden days. It's been a tough day for Ed Whitlock, but he is one heck of an inspiration. He's, if you like, one of those people, and this image for me personally is to a degree a sort of touchstone image, because if an 82-year-old can go out and do this, then, well, I'm 54, and the days when I don't feel like going out and doing my 30 or 40-minute jog, I sure as heck am going to feel a little bit more motivated now when I think about Ed and this effort. This is fantastic. Still jogging home steadily. Probably 90% of the Western world can only dream of this sort of achievement, and certainly nowhere near the age of 82. So it's a delight to see. And listen to that roar. We can hear it here from inside the cabin. I'm sure you can hear it as well at home watching this. Ed Whitlock is truly a legend that continues to live his life one day at a time, but always with that steady smile. Here he comes. Look at the clock, just inside 3 hours, 42 minutes at the age of 82. Quite staggering stuff, almost literally, certainly for many of the people around him, but no stagger from Ed Whitlock. He is composed as ever, smiling as always.
It's great to see a smile on his face at the end of that run. I'm sure it's not exactly what he came out to do today, but it's really great to see that he's feeling so positive about it.
There's a couple of gentlemen over there that look like they're Red Cross personnel, watching him with a degree of suspicion, but I don't think he's going to need him. I think they should be looking elsewhere. This man is lion-hearted, he really is.
Yeah, looks pretty good at the end of a marathon.
Well, I've run a couple of New York marathons, and he looks in much better shape than I was, and that was many, many years ago, I can tell you. I think I ran in 94 and 95, and I was in a terrible state, certainly in the second one. It took me nearly 5 hours. That's another story. Nothing to do with some of the amber nectar I was sampling on the Saturday night, just a few hours before the gun went. But
you came to finish, not to compete, I guess.
Participate, yeah, just take part. Take part, that's right.
Well, New York is such an exciting marathon.
I thought you were going to say tempting.
Tempting. Well, I went to New York last year and it was cancelled. So.
Of course, so did I. They cancelled it when I was in mid-air.
Oh, really?
Flying from London to New York.
I not. Oh, took a fall there.
Yeah.
I not.
She's there. She's there.
I not so wisely.
She wants to get across that second mat. Good girl, good lady.
On your hands and knees.
Yeah, got to be done. Yeah, no, that was very sad on New York back last November having to be cancelled because of Hurricane Sandy, and then Boston in April. The sport in this fall marathon season, autumn marathon season, thank goodness, has had a few really good shots in the arm. You know, if you look at what happened in Berlin, you look what happened in Chicago last week, and again here today in Toronto, it has been a fantastic autumn marathon season, and the sport is right back up on its feet and punching the air. And New York in 2 weeks' time, hopefully, will be doing exactly the same thing.
Oh, I hope so. I think New York's going to be very exciting this year. I think it's going to be a really good race on both the men's and the women's side, and it's so important for that event and for that city to get back to the place it was at in 2011, and to make sure that the city continues to feel that it's such a positive experience for them, for that city. You know, people ask how is it that New York can exist at this day and age, shutting down the 5 boroughs and most of the center of Manhattan. And quite simply, if this race were proposed today, they wouldn't put it on. It just would be impossible. But they make it happen every year, and it was tough last year. It took a little bit of a dent to its reputation. There were some PR mistakes that were made, but I think that after this race, they get through this race this year. Hopefully, they'll be back on track.
Yeah, and I think New York Road Runners as an organisation that puts so much money and support into the community running programs within the city of New York. You know, the greater New York is a city of 8 or 10 million people. It has so many positives that it's much stronger than anybody that could be really badly affected by one bad day or some bad PR, one bad day at the office. You know, the New York Marathon is an institution, and it being cancelled was an extreme event that nobody could possibly predict. And yeah, we don't all make exactly the best decisions all of the time. But New York got a lot of very unfair criticism around that time of Hurricane Sandy, and people know the real background stories, the truth to what was going on. Few people had bones to pick, and they made the most of it in a most unfair manner.
We're going to Ed Whitlock now.
So many people are waiting to see you cross the finish line. Tell us about your race today.
Well, it got very difficult towards the end. I was really just tottering along in the last few kilometers. So I kind of feel the effects of a cold that I picked up a couple of weeks ago, and it hasn't completely gone away. And I guess it hurt me towards the end. I got very difficult.
What inspired you to continue running?
Oh, just stupidity, maybe. I don't know. Just grind it out. Just pray for the finish to come early.
And I gotta know, what do you eat for breakfast?
What I eat for breakfast? Well, a couple of slices of bread. That was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the secret. I'm gonna start doing that. Maybe I'll reach your goal.
The secret is to do lots of training. I didn't do enough of that this time. And maybe next year.
Yeah. Well, we'll be here next year watching you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Bye.
He's always smiles. He's such an inspiring figure in the Canadian running scene. It's great to see that he's positive about his race today and happy with what he achieved.
Yeah, and you know, he's philosophical. He's an elderly gentleman who has been around the block a few times. He's seen life more than you and I put together, that's for sure. And he knows there'll be another day. You know, it doesn't always go perfectly right, I guess. So it's good to see him smiling and knowing that he's finished the race, he's done it, and he can go faster another time.
I mean, there's so many positives to take from an event, and especially when you're at that recreational level. I mean, Ed's not at a recreational level. He's in many ways a better runner than most of the lead in the pack. But at the middle and the back of the pack runner, the charity runner, for example, and in fact, we're actually going to go out onto the course and chat with somebody who's involved in the charities.
We, St. Chris, are going to have the best stage this year.
On race day, the people of St. Lawrence will be out in full force, cheering on the runners.
Hi, I'm Steve Loudon, and I'm president of the St. Lawrence Neighborhood Association. We're here at Hank's Cafe, which is the hub for our neighborhood fundraising activities. We're raising money for the Toronto Foundation for Student Success, which is a school nutrition program that provides 147,000 breakfasts and lunches for needy school kids.
I'm Lambrina Nicolau. I'm part of the St. Christopher House team, and we work with 22,000 people a year, children, youth, families, seniors, homeless folks, immigrants, and refugees, to enable people to gain greater control of their lives and their communities.
My name is Dennis. I'm with the St. Lawrence Neighborhood Association. We're at the Great Burger Kitchen, home of the Marathon Burger, and I'm with the general manager, Monique, and she's going to tell us a little about the Marathon Burger.
Here you go. This is our Marathon Burger. Every time you buy one, $1 goes to the St. Lawrence Neighborhood Fundraiser.
The first time we were at Princess Gates on Lakeshore, the energy, the enthusiasm, the team spirit was just remarkable. The crowds were roaring, the samba drums were pounding, the dancers were dancing, and some of our runners even stopped to dance with the samba dancers.
We're here at the epicenter of the St. Lawrence Neighborhood Cheering section. This is where it's all going to happen on race day. We're going to have flags. We're going to have people out in full force cheering. We're going to have bands. We can't wait for race day when the runners are going to be coming to our neighborhood and we can show them what a fantastic place we live in.
When they see our stage and our samba dancers and hear the beat of the Brazilian drums, they're energized, they're motivated, they're excited. They're not only running, they're dancing their stride, and they're soaring by our stage all the way to the finish.
Well, it is happening, folks. Look behind me here. You can see the 41-kilometer mark. That means that these runners have 1.2 kilometers left. They are in the home stretch, and we've got the cheering stations just around us, as you can see, from the start to the finish. I think one of the sounds of the day, if you can hear it in behind me, is the cowbell. Cowbell has been everywhere around here in the running course today. We have so many people just flying by us here. They are so close to that home stretch. As I said, it's 1.2 kilometers left. They're using every ounce of strength left in them to get towards that finish line. And still, people flying through with smiles on their face for that finish. Unbelievable. You know, we are making dreams come here and dreams come true today. It is about being fast, furious, and just ferocious out here on the course. Great job. 1.2 left. I'm throwing it back to the guys, back to Mike and Tim in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us out here. And don't forget again to check out on Twitter. Go to hashtag STWM. So many pictures, so many tweets. It is alive and exciting out here on the course today.
Thanks, Melissa. Well, she smiles all the way as ever and has been great out there on the course. Many thanks to Melissa. Michael, our day is just about coming to an end now here in Toronto at the Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon of 2013. It has been a day that's produced just about everything we could possibly have asked.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw the Canadian marathons, on the record on marathon on Canadian soil, broken by a large margin by Teresa Chimsa in an incredible race. That was really exciting. But the big story today was the reinvention of Canadian women's marathoning, and both Krista Duchesne and Lanny Marchand breaking that record, with Lanny Marchand going into a 2:27:59, and that's the new number for the next generation of Canadian female runners.
And I've got a feeling that Reid Coulsat sitting in the booth with us here for much of that second half of the race, having seen Eric Gillis come home in 2:11 and bits at the end of his race, 2:11:48 I think I got Eric at, will be a little bit more inspired and hungry going in towards Fukuoka, his next big challenge in 5 weeks' time. He's got a half marathon next week. But the men's race was a great race. You know, Eric will have mixed feelings, I suspect, about his run. But you look at Teresa Chimsa, the caliber of that run. He's pushed the course record down to 2:07:06, 2 hours, 7 minutes and 6 seconds. You know, a few clicks away from sub 2:07, and then you're in a very select club of big, fast marathons.
I think it's really important for this event as well, and for bringing international caliber runners to Canada to race. And it just shows that this is a fast course, it's a good time of year, and elite caliber, high quality caliber international marathoners will come, and this will just bring more of them in the future.
So just to recap those results for you, the winner of the women's race, Flamina Chayech of Kenya, 2:25:12. That is an unofficial time. We have yet to have complete confirmation from the race referee. Seychelles Dalasa, 2:26:42. She was about, a minute and a half further back. And then in third place with that astonishing run. The story of the day for me was Lanny Marchand, 2:27:59, a new national record. 28 years that record has lasted, and it's breathed its last breath, which is good to hear. And of course, in the men's race, Teresa Chimsa, 2:07:06, was a brilliant run too.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so excited for Lanny Marchand right now, and Krista Duchesne, because you got to give her some credit for getting underneath that record as well. And I think the sky's the limit for these two in the future. They work so well, and they push each other so hard, and it'll be interesting to see what they do in the spring.
And of course, we need to congratulate Alan, the race director, and his team, the thousands of volunteers that are out on the course helping out for the races today. 25,000 on the streets of Toronto for this Scotiabank Toronto Waterfront Marathon, which has been a great day of success in 2013. Great advertisement for the city.
Yeah, it's 25,000 people on the course, and it's a perfect day for running. And I think it showcases the city in a magnificent capacity. It's really exciting.
And that's it, I think, from Toronto for now. From Melissa and Laura, of course, out on the course, from the production team, from Michael and myself, Tim Hutchings. It's been a great day. We've loved it. We've enjoyed the racing. We'll go outside and enjoy a bit of sunshine ourselves now, I think, and maybe find somewhere to sloop off and have a quiet cup of tea, of course. Nothing else, nothing stronger. Mike, thanks very much indeed. It's been a pleasure, and we do hope you've enjoyed it back at home. Bye-bye.